up, so southern areas not seeing a huge amount of rain, but there will be a bit more rain on offer through Sunday. It's quite showery, so hit and miss in nature. Not everywhere will see some. And then the start of next week looks largely dry, especially towards the south. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
What would you do with £60,000 cash? What would you do with a real gold bar? Well, both have to be won in our Golden Summer celebration. First, there's £60,000 in tax-free cash to bolster your bank account this year. Plus, we'll also give you a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it is 3 o'clock. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Nana Acquia, on GB News, broadcasting live until 6. Here is what's coming up on today's show.
So this was an explosive device. We arrested one person at the scene, as I said, and we arrested a second person in Dublin.
Extremely significant car bomb has been intercepted near the Irish border. 2 people have been arrested. We will have all of the latest. In other news, a record 165 migrants crossed the Channel on one boat. Yes, you heard it here first. The largest number ever crammed onto a single migrant vessel, and as many as 200 more have crossed this morning. Andy Burnham opens the doors to number 10 North in Manchester today, promising to shift power away from Westminster. I don't particularly know why he needs to do that, but is this just an expensive, time-consuming gimmick? The lawyer representing the families of 3 girls murdered by the Southport killer has accused him of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. And Meghan shares a glimpse into her Sussex summer holiday, including what appears to be a family visit to Princess Diana's childhood home. And finally, Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary has warned passengers that the airline will not wait for anybody. Does it wait for anybody? I don't think it does in any case. During what's expected to be a busy summer of border delays for Brits. That is all coming up in this hour. Right, so it appears, because we're talking a lot about number 10 North, and I have to say I do find it a little bit shocking that that's what he's talking about. I have not mentioned a real conversation about immigration yet. I have yet to hear Andy Burnham talk about what he's planning to do about the small boats. He did talk about HMA Britain, but that is after they've arrived, if you get my drift. So perhaps he's suggesting that we don't put them in HMOs. I don't want them in HMOs. I'd like to see migrants detained and not allowed to leave whatever facility they are in. I simply don't get why there is so much obfuscation about number 10 North, but we will be covering all of that. Stay with me. You can post your comments, gbnews.com/your say, or scan the QR code on the screens now. But first, your latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The headlines at 3:02. An extremely significant car bomb has been intercepted by Irish police near the border with Northern Ireland in a seizure which has been described as very worrying. A female driver in her 20s was arrested after the Garda discovered the military-grade explosive during an operation targeting dissident Republicans. The car was travelling in County Monaghan, about 6.2 miles from the open border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Commissioner Justin Kelly gave an update on the arrests made.
What we found was an extremely significant seizure. So this was an explosive device. We arrested one person at the scene, as I said, and we arrested a second person in Dublin. So we're satisfied that this is dissident Republican activity, and our investigations are continuing in relation to it.
Elsewhere, Prime Minister Andy Burnham has described his first day of work at the new number 10 North in Manchester as the best day of his life. The new branch of Downing Street forms part of the Prime Minister's aim to shift power from Westminster to regions across the country. Education Secretary Lucy Powell and First Secretary of State Louise Hay are expected to work regularly from the Manchester base, with up to 300 civil servants expected to join them by the end of next year. Mr Burnham is set to chair a meeting of the National Economic Council, a cabinet committee first launched in 2008 to respond to economic challenges around the UK. He gave a speech a short time ago.
That is what number 10 North is all about, putting power in every postcode so that people can turn things around for themselves and make changes, just as this great city has done and the other English cities are doing through devolution. Turning things round because of that ability to be able to do more for themselves.
Some more breaking news today. Police say 4 men have died after a car hit a lamppost in Merseyside. The car left the road and crashed on Liverpool Road in Huyton in the early hours of this morning. The men, 2 aged 23 and 2 others aged 24 and 26, died at the scene, Merseyside police have said. A 27-year-old man who was a passenger inside the vehicle has been taken to hospital and is in a stable condition. In other news, singer Chris Brown has pleaded guilty to a fray over a confrontation at a London nightclub in which a man was hit over the head with a bottle. The US musician faced an allegation he attacked a former friend at the Tape Club in Mayfair in 2023, during which the man was hospitalised. At Southwark Crown Court today, the R&B singer admitted to the charge of a fray. He'll be sentenced in October. The Trump administration has imposed new tariffs of at least 10% on imports from 60 countries over claims they failed to prevent forced labour. Those targeted, including the UK, China and the European Union, will face a tariff of 10% to 12.5% on all goods, accounting for almost all American imports. They mark the latest escalation in the global trade war reignited by President Donald Trump when he returned to office last year. The US Supreme Court ruled earlier this year that many of the tariffs imposed globally under emergency powers were illegally enacted. The lawyer representing the families of 3 young girls murdered by the Southport killer have accused him of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to a psychiatric hospital. The Ministry of Justice confirmed he was transferred from HMP Belmarsh to Broadmoor, the high-security psychiatric hospital in Berkshire. He murdered Elsie Stankham, BB King and Alice de Silva Aguiar and injured 8 other children and 2 adults in an attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in July 2024. And former Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has been confirmed as the new head coach of the German men's football team. The German FA put Klopp at the top of their list when Julian Nagelsmann resigned after their World Cup ended with a penalty shootout defeat to Paraguay in the last 32. 59-year-old Klopp spent 9 years at Liverpool, leaving in 2024 after winning the Champions League, Premier League, FIFA Club World Cup, FA Cup and League Cup twice. Those are your latest GBNews headlines. Quick look at the markets.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GBNews Finance Report.
The pound will buy you $1.33 US and 1.17 euros. The price of gold is £3,047 per ounce and the FTSE 100's at 10,701 points.
GBNews Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Welcome to GB News. I'm Nana Aquare in for Martin Daubney. Now, an extremely significant car bomb has been intercepted by Irish police near the border with Northern Ireland. A female driver in her 20s was arrested after the Garda discovered the military-grade explosive during an operation targeting dissident Republicans. Now, this is a bit of a shocker. Well, we're joined now by GB News reporter Doogie Beattie, who has more for us. Doogie, so these guys were coming across from the Republic. And tell us a bit more about where exactly they were stopped and do we have any reason as to why there was suspicion on them?
Well, they were stopped on the Monaghan border, so that's really over to the west of the province. Now, there has been a serious amount of complaints about the porous border in Northern Ireland after Brexit, if you remember that whole protocol and the framework document and how immigrants are allowed to come across that border. But this actually might calm some people down because there has been serious intelligence here between the British security forces, the Police Service of Northern Ireland and the Garda Síochána, which is the police force in the Republic of Ireland. And why this is so significant, it appears from the Commissioner of the Garda Síochána that this was military-grade explosives. It doesn't matter how big this weapon was, it's the fact that it's military-grade explosives. And it is now being suggested that it is Semtex. That is where Colonel Gaddafi took explosives from Russia, Vladimir Putin, no other than him, and weapons, supplied them to the IRA in the 80s and 90s, and they came through various routes, including Kurdistan, and arrived in the Irish Republic. So in this press conference, Kelly, the Commissioner, actually thanks those of Kurdish origin. So we can assume that this is on the go again, and that route has been used. And of course, the IRA's real money came from Iran, Hamas, and travelled right through. So we are now seeing this again. Is this Russia now interfering again? There was some mention of Ukraine in that. This is the worry for the British security forces, more than who the target was. Now, we could be looking at this too far, Nana. We could be seeing this as some sort of turf warfare between dissident Republican groups who have broken away and are really over turf warfare, and that includes gangsterism. But it's the fact that it's military-grade explosives that is really quite chilling. And the Commissioner also mentioned that in the Good Friday Agreement, and if you remember back to 1998, unfortunately I can, at that time the IRA were told that they must decommission, and Tony Blair let them get into government through Sinn Féin without decommissioning weapons. But the strange point in his press conference was that he was thanking the Kurdish So it really suggests that that supply line is open again. And of course, Russia played this game with the IRA back in the 80s and 90s in order to keep the British military busy. Or is there something happening down that route again? We don't know. They're not being very open about the origin of it, but it is strange to hear the Kurdish being mentioned at this stage. We will see how far this goes over the next few weeks and see what the British intelligence bring forward, but definitely a big lot of cooperation on intelligence between the Republic of Ireland and Great Britain.
Yeah, well, I thought all of that sort of conflict was over, but it does seem as obviously there are some who are still avenging it in some way. I want to ask you, Doogie, what's the reaction there in Northern Ireland to Andy Burnham, if you're hearing any reaction, and Number 10 North?
Well, I'm actually in Manchester, outside Number 10 North. I flew over this morning, and of course that word of that bomb came out later on. But yes, I'm here in Manchester, and people are asking, what is it? Is it a devolved government? Does it have powers? Will there be people sitting here, or is it just a massive talking shop? That's the real point that people are asking here. There's meant to be 300 civil servants going to be based here. Who's paying for it? And is there going to be different rules in all these devolved parliaments? Of course, I come from Northern Ireland, that is one of the devolved parts of the UK, and our government cannot agree anything, and all it does is puts in another very expensive line of bureaucracy between local politics and Westminster. We'll see, is Andy Burnham going to make this a mammoth achievement or a massive white elephant?
Well, I mean, they couldn't even sort out the council sort of reorganisation and try to sort of move the elections to make it all fit, because they couldn't fit it in. It was a time waster, and a lot of them lost their seats. Anyway, Doogie Beattie, thank you very much. Really good to speak to you. Thank you. Yeah, you see, that's the thing. In Number 10 North, as you mentioned, how many boats, how many people have come across via the dinghies? Well, let's speak with Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South, Graham Stringer. Graham, a lot of people listening to all of this Number 10 North and saying this is a bit of obfuscation. We've just had a huge megawatt dinghy now. We've never seen one this big. Transport people across the channel. Andy Burnham still has yet to say anything really substantial about that.
I think those are two separate issues. I agree with you that Andy needs to say what he's going to do about people who've paid a great deal of money to international criminals coming here and getting accommodation and being fed and given health and dental treatment. I think that has to stop. It can only stop by making it clear that people who come via that route are not welcome, and secondly, that they won't be allowed to stay. To do that, we need to get rid of the European Convention on Human Rights and probably the Refugee Convention as well. Andy needs to say something about that if he's got an alternative view of how we effectively deal with this problem. I'd be interested in hearing him.
But I don't think they are separate issues, and the reason I bring it up is because it's about priority. What are you prioritising? Why is Number 10 North such a major priority over actual people coming over the channel, breaking into this country? Why is that not a higher priority than Number 10 North?
Well, I don't agree with you that because he's saying that people, ministers and civil servants should work in Manchester and be available in Manchester, that in some way deprioritises the issue of illegal immigrants coming across the channel. I mean, if I can give you two very quick anecdotes to explain why I think it's necessary. There is a great deal of ignorance and bigotry in the civil service in London, which means that all the regions of England are discussed in London by people who don't know what's going on. When I was a minister, I was given notes, which I didn't use as it happened. I was speaking to the Sheffield Chamber of Commerce, and the first sentence I was given is, "Great to be here in the North East." They didn't even know the difference between Yorkshire and Newcastle, effectively. at that time. So I think bringing people up here to Manchester and to other parts of the country will help the civil service understand what's going on. It was only when the Conservative Party conference first came to Manchester that the then Conservative government realised what a mess bus deregulation had been in the English regions, because of course the buses in London were never deregulated. So I don't believe if there'd been senior ministers and officials working in the English regions properly, that we would ever have had the disaster of bus deregulation.
But then what's the point of the MPs who are all over this country representing their regions and making points based on their area? Surely that's what they are there for. Civil servants, you know, to me, I think many of them are ignorant, full stop, doesn't matter where they are, but a lot of them are making, well, a lot of them have been in the job for too long. They've been in there for decades over different governments, and they seem to have their own ideologies that don't fit in with the rest of society anyway. I don't really, you know, so I don't know whether moving them up north makes much difference.
Well, I think it does. I don't want to repeat myself, but you can always improve somebody's ignorance by giving them information and education, and that would be better, because although there's always been local government, there are now mayoral authorities, they are still dependent on, by and large, getting grant from central government and making a case regularly to central government. If central government don't understand it or don't accept the facts, then there's not going to be a happy solution to that.
Well, I just think a lot of people will be looking, scratching their heads, wondering why this was the most poignant policy that he would bring in initially. Most people would have thought perhaps he could give us an idea about what he's going to do about the boats, the current invasion of our country. I just find it, you know, number 10 North, I mean, you know what I mean? Most people, I think it's more
I don't know what you mean, actually. I think you're dismissing the importance of government understanding what's going on in the English regions, and they clearly don't. I think Andy's not been in as Prime Minister for a week yet. I would prefer him to think through what he's going to do. It's clearly that some issues he's not completely clear what he's going to do. I think that's a fair criticism of the Prime Minister, but it is better that he gets serious policies on the economy, on immigration, on the future of the health service, all those mega issues. I think it needs less thinking about putting officials and ministers in the English regions. I think that's a win-win situation. There are far bigger issues, I agree.
Yeah, there are. Well, we agree. We leave on agreement. Graham Stringer, thank you very much. He's the Labour MP for Bleckley and Middleton South. Thank you so much. All right, well, of course, I've been talking about it, but here it is, a record. 165 migrants have arrived in the UK on a single mega. Because the other one was a mega dinghy, this must be a mega dinghy. The largest number ever recorded on one boat, and this comes as up to 200 migrants have crossed just this morning. This is completely unsustainable. So whilst Andy Burnham is gathering his civil servants and whoever just to educate them on the north, we have people invading this country. Well, joining us now is GBNews' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, what more can you tell us about what I believe is an invasion? I'm sure a lot of the British public believe the same thing.
Well, perhaps this new government, in terms of a new figurehead, was lulled into a false sense of security by the fact that we had 12 days without any migrant crossings. But the reason was that there were winds whipping through the channel, that while we were enjoying a heat wave, they were still above 10, 12 miles an hour and coming predominantly from the north, which means these boats can't cross the channel safely. Now that the winds have abated a bit, for the past 3 days, we have had arrivals, and we are now looking at about 700 small boat migrants, illegal immigrants who have crossed the English Channel or who currently crossing the English Channel since Andy Burnham took over the reins in Downing Street. And you're right to point out, Nana, that we have not heard anything from Andy Burnham in the many, many months prior to him taking office about the migration crisis, a crisis that has caused so much in the way of unrest right across the country in terms of many people feeling that it erodes the social fabric of their communities and, of course, makes their standard of living less and less. The quality of the standard of their living is being degraded by this mass migration and also illegal migration crisis that we've been seeing. We've had nothing before he took the reins at Downing Street. And this week, despite the numbers coming across, and despite him being a record-breaking Prime Minister now, having seen on his watch the biggest ever number of migrants on a single boat just yesterday, 165, still no word from Andy Burnham as he opens the new Downing Street, number 10 North. And as we speak, Nana, we have had 2 more boats arriving today, another one that has come from very far south on the French coast. And what it is showing is a significant change in the tactics by the people smugglers. They are responding to the way in which the British and French governments have been trying to stop the migration crisis across the Channel further north. So we've got increased police patrols around Calais and Dunkirk, and that's forced the people smugglers to adapt and overcome, as we've seen them do over the 8 years of this Channel migrant crisis. They've done it again. They're pushing fewer boats out from further away, but those boats are bigger and carrying more people. That's the consequence of what is a response to the latest actions of the British and French government.
I mean, perhaps he should be setting up a number 10 down south, where he could actually send some of the civil servants to the Kent coast, where they can be there and perhaps see what exactly is happening, because it doesn't sound like anyone wants to address the situation. Mark White, thank you very much. He's GB News' Home and Security Editor. All right, 23 minutes after 3 o'clock, still to come. The BBC is demanding access to Donald Trump's personal messages as it defends itself against his $10 billion defamation lawsuit. And next, the lawyer representing the families of 3 girls murdered by Axel Ruda-Cabana have accused the Southport killer of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss all of that. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm Nana Akwe on GB News. This is Martin Daubney's show. Right, the lawyer representing the families of the Southport victims have accused the killer of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. Officials say the killer will remain at the high-security psychiatric hospital until he is assessed as fit to return to prison. Right, well, let's speak now with criminal barrister and former Conservative MP Jerry Hayes. Jerry, thank you very much for joining me. A lot of people are quite annoyed by this because we see what his room will look like in Broadmoor as opposed to a cell in Belmarsh. Why are they believing that he needs assessment in some way?
Well, evidently, and I know as much as you know about this, that he was unmanageable. He was attacking other prisoners and people weren't safe. Then what they did, they got two Home Office psychiatrists who specialised in this matter to say, well, look, is this man so dangerous that he should go to Broadmoor? And Broadmoor, you know, it's not a particularly nice place. You saw a prison cell there. But actually, if you are in Belmarsh or elsewhere on a life sentence, you get a similar sort of sentence. You get quite a reasonable standard of life just so you can manage the prisoners. But I do think the government should be transparent about this. I really do, because it's quite appalling that we suddenly hear about it in the news and we don't know why. We want to know exactly what the psychiatrist decided, how long he's going to stay there for. We know it's not going to affect his sentence for 52 years, and that's 52 years even before he's considered for release. But sometimes the way the Ministry of Justice behave is just so cack-handed. You know, people need to be reassured. The public need to be reassured. The public need to be reassured that they're going to be safe. And you see the early prison release as well. Another complete and utter fiasco. Releasing rapists early, releasing violent prisoners early. It is absolutely insane. And people will lose trust in the judicial system. They'll lose trust in the government. And that's not a good idea.
Well, prisons, don't they have smaller windows than that? He seemed to have quite a big window there, nice big TV in the wall. Looked like a TV to me. It looks kind of like a Premier Inn. I don't mean to be rude. Not that Premier Inn is horrible. Premier Inn's all right, actually. But that looks a bit like a Premier Inn to me. Now, I get why people would be annoyed, but I suppose, on the flip side, they can keep him sedated and they can put medical interventions on him that he has no power to stop and basically make sure that he doesn't really do much.
Yeah, and actually, it is very difficult to get a bed. I mean, I do a lot of these cases. To get a hospital order, you need a hospital order. It's called a Section 41, and you are there forever. If you suddenly do recover, you're sent back to prison. So if he has tried to game the system, but I don't think anyone, I was going to say in their right mind, obviously, but no sensible person would want to game the system to get to Broadmoor. I just think the information has not been clear to the public. We have a right to know precisely why he's there and roughly how long he's going to be there.
Well, it's going to cost us a lot more, over $250,000. I don't mean to be rude, but I think people like this should be executed. There's no point keeping them alive day in, day out. What's the point? Do you know what I mean? It's no point in him. He's not going to come.
I can see a lot of people thinking that. In fact, my grandfather was murdered many years ago when there was the death sentence and he was commuted to life. How long do you reckon he had to serve? And this is 1963, I think. 7 years. Everyone who thinks it's tougher then than it is now, it's not true. And actually, we used to have all these death penalty debates in the House of Commons. I was there 3 parliaments. We had it once at Parliament. And the statistics are quite interesting. A lot of people were reluctant to find people guilty for murder, knowing that there was going to be a death sentence. And the other thing as well is that, it's true. I mean, those are the statistics.
But I would have absolutely no problem on this case. And like I said, I'm more than happy to press the button. If it were a law and it's perfectly legitimate to execute somebody like this, you would have me doing that. I wouldn't care. I'd actually be quite glad. I think that I've taken a horrible creature off the face of the earth and saved the taxpayer in the process. Jerry, we do have to leave it there, sadly. But I could talk to you for a long time about this one.
OK, nice to speak to you.
Nice to talk to you. That's former Conservative MP Jerry Hayes, and also he's a criminal barrister. Right, 32 minutes after 3 o'clock, breaking news. New footage has been released in the Henry Novak murder case. The video appears to show convicted killer Vikram Digwa asking his mother, Kiran Kaur, to take away the knife after he stabbed Henry Novak. The video was released by the Crown Prosecution Service after she was jailed last week for, in my view, just 3 years, which is shocking to me, at Southampton Crown Court for assisting an offender. In the meantime, the CCTV footage on your screen shows Kiran Kaur outside her house and was provided by Cruise Azure Car Park. Well, I'm joined now by GBNews' national reporter Charlie Peters, who has more on this breaking story. Charlie, what more can you tell us?
Well, now let's go back to that footage that you've just been playing out there. At the start of the footage does show the moment when Kiran Kaur was asked by her son, Vikram Digwa, to take the weapon away. I hope we can play that footage for you now. I know you've just played it out. It would be great if we could just go back to that footage in full, please, because this is the critical moment. Footage just released by the Crown Prosecution Service. This is captured from the Cruise Azure car park in Southampton. It shows in another clip taken on Digwa's phone, pointed at the ground, speaking to his mother, Kaur, in Punjabi, asking her to take away the weapon. This CCTV, though, is at the scene of the murder. Afterwards, he made a call to his mother, asking her to take the knife. Now, Mrs. Kaur then attended the scene and took the knife from him. She then returned to the home address, and that is what you are looking at now, shown in this footage, and the knife was then left at the family home later after being recovered by the police. I can throw you to a clip now of when Digwa was pointing the phone at the ground, but he can be heard speaking to Kaur in Punjabi, asking him to take away his knife. Now, I hope we can also play that footage again, just on repeats without the sound, because that is a clip where Digwa is pointing the phone at the ground in that moment. You can see the gravel. This captured just minutes after the murder of Henry Novak, pointing the phone at the ground. He can heard speaking to his mother, Kiran Kaur, in Punjabi, asking him to take away his knife, asking that knife to be taken away. Here's that footage again for you now, speaking to Kaur in Punjabi, asking her to take away his knife. So this is critical information just being released to us from the Crown Prosecution Service. If we could go back now to that footage you were showing previously from the car park, just to go through that footage again. cut away from that a bit earlier, but this is 11:35, so about 5 minutes after the murder of Henry Novak. Now, in this footage, you can see in the top left of your screen the light coming on there as there's some activity, and that is when Vikram Digwa had made a call to his mother asking her to take the knife. She attended the scene and took the knife from him. She's returned to the home address, and that's what you're seeing here, and the knife was left at the family home. Now, when she took that weapon, what she did next is part of the reason why she was jailed for 3 years, because she failed to do the responsible thing a parent should have done and challenged their son. Instead, she took that knife and put it into a larger collection of ceremonial weapons. That frustrated the police, and it took them a week before they found that weapon. She was jailed last week to 3 years, Nana, as you described, but it's thought that she could be out much sooner than that.
Oh, God. I mean, so very briefly, Charlie, because I know we're running out of time on this. So presumably, because the videos come from the Crown Prosecution Service, those who, with the jury, I presume there was a jury, would have seen that, and still that wasn't enough by the sounds of it. The judge would have seen this, that still wasn't enough for the judge to give a bigger sentence than just 3 years.
Well, there we go. And of course, also, yes, this footage was shared in the court. All the stuff that the CPS has shared with us in this case so far has first been shown in legal proceedings. Just more and more information to coming to us in the days and weeks after those proceedings have ended. It is a delicate process, of course, this one. But Nana, yes, all this footage already seen by legal proceedings. I just want to bring you a little bit more context to this situation. By putting that weapon in a larger collection of ceremonial weapons, she helped to conceal what it had been used for. The judge said she did that to avoid being caught. Digwa handed the knife to his mother, later found by police at the family home, along with 20 other weapons. The prosecutor, in the case of Kieran Kaur, described her actions as criminality of the highest order, and that her role was crucial when it came to removing the knife. And this is the critical moment, filmed by Vikram Digwa himself, speaking in Punjabi and saying, "Take this," as the weapon is handed to his mother.
All right, Charlie Peters, thank you very much. That's GB News' national reporter, Charlie Peters. Thank you. Right, 38 minutes after 3 o'clock. Still to come, the BBC is demanding access to Donald Trump's personal messages as it defends itself against his $10 billion defamation lawsuit. Nice try. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello again, it's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, looking ahead to the weekend, and if you're hoping for a bit of rain, well, there will be some, but the further south you are, well, the longer you're going to have to wait. That's because the more changeable weather is coming in from the north. We've already seen a bit of cloud, bit of rain across northern parts today. There is more of that to come through this evening and overnight, initially across northern parts of Scotland, but spilling in across the rest of Scotland into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England and Wales. The heaviest rain, though, and the strongest winds will be across northern Scotland as we go overnight. Some relatively heavy bursts of rain here. Further south, staying dry, largely clear skies, bit of mist, bit of fog perhaps, and temperatures holding up. Quite a warm night for many of us. So tomorrow morning, a wet start, a blustery start across northern northwestern parts of Scotland. We are going to see that rain edging further southwards, so the more persistent rain will be clearing northern parts of Scotland, but through the morning it is going to be pretty soggy and blustery. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and starting to feed into parts of northern England, but the rest of England and Wales, well, it's a fine start to the day. Lots of sunshine, and in southern parts, well, it is going to stay sunny through the bulk of the day. And with that sunshine, as you would expect, temperatures rising. A different story further north, though. With this front that's bringing that cloud and that rain, there is slightly fresher air coming in. So temperatures will be a little bit lower across parts of Scotland. But in the south of England and also South Wales, temperatures getting to the mid to high 20s, possibly even low 30s around the London area. Later on tomorrow, that rain across more central areas will feed a bit further southwards, but as it goes, it is breaking up. So southern areas not seeing a huge amount of rain, but there will be a bit more rain on offer through Sunday. It's quite showery, so hit and miss in nature. Not everywhere will see some. And then the start of next week looks largely dry, especially towards the south. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M1 southbound between junctions 14 and 11A in Luton is closed tonight. The M4 eastbound at junction 11 in Reading has a lane closure. The M42 northbound between junctions 5 and 6 in Solihull East has a lane closure with slow traffic. The A428 is closed after the A1 near St Neots. In Scotland, the M77 northbound has 2 lanes restricted with queues at junction 3 on the slip roads. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J41 Pentyler Baglan to J42 Earlswood is closed, and on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between Stafford and Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. I'm Nana Akwe in for Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, the BBC has demanded to see Donald Trump's private messages as it fights against the $10 billion defamation lawsuit over a Panorama documentary about the Capitol riot. Now, they want to see Trump's messages from January the 6th. As they say, it could help prove whether the documentary wrongly blamed him for the violence. But Donald Trump's lawyers have refused to hand over the exchange, claiming that they are protected. Let's just remind ourselves of that Panorama edit.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Why the BBC would want to bring this back up so we could all watch that terrible splicing of clips is a shocker to me. And it wasn't the first time they'd done it. But let's speak to the former BBC current affairs producer, John Mayer. Now, we can both agree that that falls way below the BBC standards and against their own guidelines. I used to work for them, and that was not allowed. So they've done that, and now there's... Sorry, go on, John.
Guilty as charged, right? No, the BBC has no defence in terms of production. I mean, anyway, it's nice to talk to you. I thought I'd be talking to you at a birthday party today, but you've obviously got bigger fish to fry. Now, Trump's little lawsuit. It's getting thinner and thinner and thinner. He really has no case, you know. Think of what he's been doing. He's dropped a case against BBC Studios, so he won't get access to their money. You know, the programme wasn't shown in America. It wasn't shown in Florida, so he has no case there. I've spoken to lawyers in Britain, not BBC lawyers, who say there is no case and it will be thrown out. So why is he wasting his time? What's he trying to do? Bully the BBC by wanting to take all of their licence fee money, not just some of it, but all of it. So, you know, what is he doing? They have a right, and I've read their submission, to seek access under discovery to his communications with people on January 6, 2021. Who knows what he said to whom and when? And I think if you watch contemporary documentaries at the time, he knew what was happening. It's only at the very end he said, "All right, guys, let's stop." So I mean, all they're saying is, we want to look at the correspondence. You'll have to waive executive privilege for this, but you know, so we go. And you know, they quote an official report as well, which Trump suppressed, which said Trump was guilty. So you know, why is Trump carrying on with it?
Well, some might say that it's a bit desperate on the BBC, really, to try and now access his phone records to see if it was his fault because of the riots. That doesn't really add up, to be honest. And I thought part of this was that they needed to show malice. They needed to show that the BBC did what they did with malice. And this is... Clearly, editing and splicing that clip was a malicious attempt to change the narrative. And why they'd want to re-highlight that, I have no idea. But it doesn't show them in a good light. I don't think this is about the money, John.
It was downright plain stupid to do. Whoever did that should be sacked or has been sacked. If he has been sacked, he or she has been sacked, should be sacked now. Plain stupid. Should never have been done. But the BBC apologised for it. Now they have a right. I mean, you know, these are court cases. People have a right under discovery to find out what the other side has. You know, Trump could come to the BBC and ask what Tim Davie said about this. He can ask what the producer said about it. I see that they want to come to England to interview Tim Davie. You know, why not? I mean, this is why it's called discovery. You discover him. So, but Trump, his case is thinner and thinner and thinner, and he doesn't win legal cases, as you well know.
Well, I don't know about that. I think the BBC are coming across very desperately, and it also puts even more shame on them for the fact that they even tried to change the meaning of what was said. They didn't even, if they were so confident that he started those riots, they should have just left it as is, you know, because I don't.
I agree. It was crass, it was stupid, and they apologised.
But they've been held to account. Yes, but you can't. Well, then, yes, but that causes things. What if they're arguing that what he has said or done has caused a riot? Then he can argue that what they've said or done has caused a situation as well. So I find it they want it to go their way, but they're not seeing how it looks on their side. It doesn't make any sense.
He's saying they defamed him. Well, they didn't defame him because, you know, 4 days after the programme, he won an election with a thumping majority. So how could they defame someone?
You can still defame someone and they can still win an election. Those are two very separate things. If the BBC want to have this worldwide sort of esteem and be held in high regard, they can't go splicing clips up to match their narrative rather than just leaving the clip to at least they changed the meaning of what he said. And as we know, that's not acceptable.
As I've said, Nala, for the third time, it was crass, it was stupid, and they've apologised. And they've taken off. It should never have been done. Full stop. But Trump is just silly. He's just trying to cripple the BBC as he's crippled PBS, as he's crippled every other public broadcaster in America.
Well, he wouldn't have been able to do it, John, if they hadn't given him ammunition. Look, I've got to leave it here, John. Thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Shame we didn't have longer.
I'll see you at your next birthday party.
All right, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. He's a former BBC Current Affairs producer, John Mayer. Well, in a statement, Samir Shah, the chairman of the BBC, has apologised for the Panorama edit and has described it as an error of judgment. Right, well, coming up next, Ryanair boss has warned passengers that they will not wait for anybody. They don't wait for anybody either, do they? During what's expected to be a busy summer of border delays for the Brits. But first, if you fancy some holiday sun, doesn't sound like Ryanair's a good choice, but here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat we've had this week across some parts of Europe, that is now starting to ease and clear away towards the south. Nonetheless, there's some high humidity around, still some high temperatures. And with that, there's the risk of some heavy thundery showers affecting parts of northern Spain, southern France through tomorrow. Mostly dry for Italy for a day or so, similar across parts of Greece, with today's showers clearing away towards the east, more affecting Turkey. But there is the risk of some further showers for both Italy and Croatia into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
This is really exciting. We've got 1 million people living with dementia in this country, and about 65%, 70% of them have Alzheimer's disease. This is a condition where a protein called amyloid beta builds up in plaques within the brain and interferes with the connection of nerve cells. It's a cruel disease, as I know you're aware. It robs families of the relative that they once loved, the personality that they knew, and it's the leading cause of death in this country. So, numbers are only increasing as the ageing population grows. But here we have in phase 3 clinical trials, which is the last stage of trials before a regulatory body approves it for use, which appears to clear some of these plaques within a few weeks. Now, that's really exciting.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
What does this kind of day mean to you, kind of coming and doing this every year?
Well, I feel that I'm doing this for my wife because she used to sell poppies properly, really, and I used to help her for 20-odd years. And I feel like I'm doing it for her, really. But it is nice to think that everybody appreciate what we did for being in the forces.
But tell me about your service, because you got sent out to the Far East, didn't you?
Yes. I just got engaged because I didn't think I was going to get called up, but then I did.
In your jacket here, you've got one medal for national service and one for that Hong Kong medal for that.
To be honest, I was 18 years old and I was very excited about going. It was an adventure to me.
The People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Weight loss jabs could help children as young as 6 who are living with obesity. When did we start saying living with obesity? Can we not say obese children? Is that not politically correct? Well, delighted to be joined now by Sarah LeBrock, Director of All About Obesity. Sarah, I think a lot of people will feel slightly uneasy about children getting on these jabs, simply because we sort of expect, I don't know, diets to be managed by parents.
Yeah, I can totally understand why people would think that. But the point we're not talking about just overweight children here. We're talking about children living with obesity. And interestingly, you say, why do we say living with obesity? It's because they're living with a chronic condition.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Martin Daubney's show with me, Nana Akwe. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel. And lots of you have been getting in touch with what you think has been going on. We will cover the Ryanair story very shortly. Michael O'Leary warning passengers that they will not wait for anybody. I'd love to hear your thoughts, actually. Have you recently been on a Ryanair flight? I'll actually, if I can, show you the video that I took on one of their planes, which was actually coasting quite comfortably, yet if you put a drink on the tray, it kept sliding down. And it was just, it was ridiculous. And I did it repeatedly. I'll show you that video at some point. But let's read some of those views that have come in. Q-Nan said this is about the BBC. Said it was devious, spiteful and very damaging for Trump's character. You are as bad as... you are as bad. It was malicious to BBC, should be barred. They would deactivate us if we said out wrong or put us on pending. Well, they won't deactivate us, but if you don't pay your licence fee, you could be arrested. Now, Wynne says he's suing the BBC to highlight how our national broadcaster is working against us and himself. Trump, has the producer been sacked? We've heard nothing about that here. If we're paying for the BBC, it should always act impartially, not act like an uncontrolled far-left conspiracy bandwagon. Yeah, this is the problem, isn't it? Hugh says an apology isn't sufficient. They can say sorry, but if the same situation occurs, which I believe I read it has, then they aren't sorry. So lots of people getting in touch with that. A lot of people quite annoyed at the fact that the BBC seems to think that it's, first of all, A, entitled to look through Donald Trump's phone messages, but B, also have a sense of umbrage for what it did and dismiss how bad it was that it sliced 2 clips and then completely changed the meaning. Now, if that is something they want to continuously highlight, I don't think that that is a good way for a state, or not state-owned, but publicly funded broadcaster to behave. Also, I'd like to hear your thoughts if you've flown Ryanair recently as well. They're planning not to wait for you, by the way, if there are any passport delays. Sounds shocking, but I don't think they would wait for you anyway. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel. Still loads more to come. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, looking ahead to the weekend, and if you're hoping for a bit of rain, well, there will be some, but the further south you are, well, the longer you're going to have to wait. That's because the more changeable weather is coming in from the north. We've already seen a bit of cloud, bit of rain across northern parts today. There is more of that to come through this evening and overnight, initially across northern parts of Scotland, but spilling in across the rest of Scotland into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England and Wales. Wales. The heaviest rain, though, and the strongest winds will be across northern Scotland as we go overnight. Some relatively heavy bursts of rain here. Further south, staying dry, largely clear skies, bit of mist, bit of fog perhaps, and temperatures holding up. Quite a warm night for many of us. So tomorrow morning, a wet start, a blustery start across northern, northwestern parts of Scotland. We are going to see that rain edging further southwards, so the more persistent rain will be clearing northern parts of Scotland, but through the morning it is going to be pretty soggy and blustery. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and starting to feed into parts of northern England, but the rest of England and Wales, well, it's a fine start to the day. Lots of sunshine, and in southern parts, well, it is going to stay sunny through the bulk of the day. And with that sunshine, as you would expect, temperatures rising. A different story further north, though. With this front that's bringing that cloud and that rain, there is slightly fresher air coming in. So temperatures will be a little bit lower across parts of Scotland. But in the south of England and also South Wales, temperatures getting to the mid to high 20s, possibly even low 30s around the London area. Later on tomorrow, that rain across more central areas will feed a bit further southwards, but as it goes, it is breaking up. So southern areas not seeing a huge amount of rain, but there will be a bit more rain on offer through Sunday. It's quite showery, so hit and miss in nature. Not everywhere will see some. And then the start of next week looks largely dry, especially towards the south. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is a collision on the M25 clockwise at junction 21A in St Albans, causing slow traffic. The M1 southbound between junctions 14 and 11A in Luton is closed tonight. The M42 northbound between junctions 7A and 8 in Coleshill South has a collision. In Scotland, the M80 northbound near Mollinsburn has lane restrictions causing queues. Across Wales, the A55 westbound from J35 Dobbs Hill to J33A Northop is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, there is disruption on Avanti West Coast services between Stafford and Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with your chance to win a real gold bar. That's right, a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000 could be yours. We're also going to make sure your finances are fabulous with £60,000 in tax-free cash. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it is 4 o'clock and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Nana Akweer. On GB News, here until 6 o'clock, here's what's coming up on today's show. New footage has been released in the Henry Novak murder case. The video appears to show convicted killer Vikram Digwa asking his mother, Kiran Kaur, to take away the knife after he stabbed Henry Novak.
Is at your service. It's here for you.
Andy Burnham opens the doors to number 10 North in Manchester today, promising to shift power away from Westminster. But is this just another expensive, time-wasting, obfuscating gimmick? And a record 165 migrants crossed the Channel on one boat yesterday. That's the largest ever crammed onto a single migrant vessel. We're not really calling them dinghies because, well, I mean, that sounds like a big boat to me, as 200 more have crossed this morning. The lawyer representing the families of 3 girls murdered by the Southport killer has accused him of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. And the government have halted the early prison release scheme amid outrage at the prospect of 2 of the PC Andrew Harper's killers being freed from jail. But could this move plunge our prisons into fresh crisis? That is all coming up next. Also, your thoughts. Do you think the Southport killer is being sort of manipulating the system by asking to, or his lawyers getting him into, for psychiatric assessment, for him to be moving to a psychiatric type thing rather than an actual prison? Perhaps it's good. I mean, maybe he'll be not able to do much. They'll maybe inject him, keep him quiet. I don't know, you know. I'm not wishing that on anyone, really, but the bottom line is actually maybe wishing it on him. But, you know, not to be too cruel, but at the end of the day, if he is a problem to others within the prison service, then perhaps he does need sedation and things like that. That can be only administered in an environment like that. But what do you think? Send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say, or scan the QR code on the screen right now. But first, your latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The headlines at 4:02. Prime Minister Andy Burnham has described his first day of work at the new number 10 North in Manchester as the best day of his life. The new branch of Downing Street forms part of the Prime Minister's aim to shift power from Westminster to regions across the country. Education Secretary Lucy Powell and First Secretary of State Louise Hay are expected to work regularly from the Manchester base, with up to 300 civil servants expected to join them by the end of next year. Mr Burnham has chaired a meeting of the National Economic Council, a cabinet committee first launched in 2008 to respond to economic challenges around the UK. The Prime Minister spoke at the official opening.
That is what number 10 North is all about, putting power in every postcode so that people can turn things around for themselves and make changes, just as this great city has done and the other English cities are doing through devolution. Turning things round because of that ability to be able to do more for themselves.
Elsewhere, an extremely significant car bomb has been intercepted by Irish police near the border with Northern Ireland in a seizure which has been described as very worrying. A female driver in her 20s was arrested after the Garda discovered the military-grade explosive during an operation targeting dissident Republicans. The car was travelling in County Monaghan, about 6.2 miles from the open border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Commissioner Justin Kelly gave an update on the arrests made.
What we found was an extremely significant seizure. So this was an explosive device. We arrested one person at the scene, as I said, and we arrested a second person in Dublin. So we're satisfied that this is dissident Republican activity, and our investigations are continuing in relation to it.
More breaking news today. Police say 4 men have died after a car hit a lamppost in Merseyside. The car left the road and crashed on Liverpool Road in Huyton in the early hours of this morning. The men, 2 aged 23 and 2 others aged 24 and 26, died at the scene, Merseyside police have said. A 27-year-old man who was a passenger inside the vehicle has been taken to hospital and is in a stable condition. Elsewhere, new footage has been released in the Henry Novak murder case, which appears to show convicted killer Vikram Digwa asking his mother, Kiran Kaur, to take away the knife after he stabbed the 18-year-old student. Meanwhile, new CCTV footage shows Kiran Kaur outside her house. The footage was released by the Crown Prosecution Service after she was jailed last week for 3 years at Southampton Crown Court for assisting an offender. The lawyer representing the families of 3 young girls murdered by the Southport killer have accused him of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to a psychiatric hospital. The Ministry of Justice confirmed he was transferred from HMP Belmarsh to Broadmoor, the high-security psychiatric hospital in Berkshire. He murdered Elsie Stankham, BB King and Alice de Silva Aguiar and injured 8 other children and 2 adults in an attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in July 2024. And singer Chris Brown has pleaded guilty to a fray over a confrontation at a London nightclub in which a man was hit over the head with a bottle. The US musician faced an allegation he attacked a former friend at the Tape Club in Mayfair in 2023, during which the man was hospitalised. At Southwark Crown Court today, the R&B singer admitted to the charge of a fray, and he'll be sentenced in October. Those are your latest GB News headlines. A quick look at the markets.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
The pound will buy you $1.33 and 1.17 euros. The price of gold is £3,047 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 10,701 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Good afternoon, welcome. It's just gone 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akwe in for Martin Daubney. Now, a record 165 migrants have arrived in the UK on a single mega dinghy, I'm going to call it that. It's the largest number ever recorded on one boat, and it comes as up to 200 migrants have crossed just this morning. Now, the latest arrivals have raised fresh questions over border security and the government's response. Just how will the Prime Minister respond? Maybe he could just say something would be useful. Joining us now is GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White to tell us more. Mark.
Well, this is a very significant story, there is no doubt, and the rest of the media are starting to waken up to this now. We're seeing reports of this 165 figure on that mega dinghy being reported, simply because, of course, the official figures have come out from the Home Office a day after we first reported this, Nana, but still no word yet from Andy Burnham as he opens number 10 North. We have not heard anything from Andy Burnham on the migrant crisis before he entered office, and now on his first week in office, despite breaking the all-time record for the number of migrants on a single boat. Still no word from Downing Street. We have heard from the Home Office, who have condemned people smugglers for pushing ever greater numbers of migrants onto these migrant dinghies out into the Channel. But as I say, nothing from Andy Burnham himself yet. And what we're witnessing, I think, Nana, is a very significant shift in tactics as the people smugglers look to adapt and overcome what the British and French police have been doing to try to stop migrant boats pushing off from the traditional beaches further north around Dunkirk and Calais. So you've got people smugglers who are now going much further afield, up to Belgium or down, as we've seen in recent days, as far as Dieppe, 100 miles south of the beaches in Dunkirk and Calais. They're putting fewer boats out, but they're putting bigger boats out, and they're putting more migrants on those boats, Nana.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is a complete mess. And the fact that it is also a very organised business that people are benefiting and gaining from, and the government just don't want to talk about it. They just don't want to talk about it.
Well, I mean, this is an international trade, akin, if you like, to the drugs trade. Not quite as big, but still a multi-billion-pound international trade. And the people smugglers, just like drug smugglers, will adapt and overcome when there are obstacles put in their way. So more police on the northern shores of the French coast just gets them to adapt, change their tactics, bring in bigger boats, push more on the boats and go to different areas where the police aren't. It's a constant game of whack-a-mole. The government might have been sort of patting itself on the back and believing that because figures for this year so far are 40% down on the record year that we had last year with 41,000 migrants crossing by the end of the year. Although they're down, that's probably as a result of periods of quite bad weather in terms of winds in the Channel. Even during the heat wave, you had winds that were more than 10 or 12 miles an hour and coming from the north, which makes it impassable for these boats. Add to that what is happening with law enforcement further north, and it is having, I think, a sort of temporary impact on some of the numbers. But I just go back to my point here, that people smugglers will always seek to adapt and overcome, and I think that is what we're witnessing now with this first week of Andy Burnham's government, where now close to 700 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel illegally.
He can't carry on not saying anything about it. What happens when these people come here? So these latest crop, they will be met, obviously, and then what happens? Where do they go from there?
Well, that is the point, and I think you're right. He can't go on saying nothing about it, because I've noticed some of the articles just published in the last hour that are in a response to the official figures showing the 165 on this mega dinghy, the record since this crisis began, and asking the question, why has Andy Burnham not said anything yet on the illegal Channel migrant crisis? So that question is being asked. The calls will only get louder the more of these larger boats that are used, and God forbid we get to the point where there is a real tragedy out there. We are not talking about a handful of people that might lose their lives, but with 165 in a single boat, if that goes down in the middle of the Channel, even if there's a French escort boat next to it, there will be a very significant loss of life.
Nah, it's safer than driving, Mark, frankly. Yeah. I mean, looking at that, you know, it's safer than driving. As soon as they're out there, they just call the Coast Guard. Of course, there may be a few tragic deaths, but most of them will be fine. You know, the chances of anything happening to these people on these boats as they're getting bigger and stronger is getting less, isn't it? Surely, the bigger, the stronger the boat, the less likely that it is that it will capsize or anything happens. They're just basically getting more and more advanced in their techniques.
Well, listen, there are dozens of people who are killed, who die in the Channel each year. Some years are worse than others, but there was dozens killed last year. So it is dangerous. However, it's all relative, isn't it? Last year, 41,000 migrants crossed the Channel, dozens died. So many of the migrants, of course, continue to come because that's a risk they're prepared to take. The chances they see of them being amongst the dozens rather than the 41,000 who made it across safely are, they would say, quite negligible.
Yeah. Exactly. They're not going to stop coming until something is actually done. And right now, I don't see that there's any appetite for it at all. Mark White, thank you very much. He's GB News' Home and Security Editor. Right, it's just coming up to 4:15. And let's talk Andy Burnham, who's not saying anything about the illegal migration and the business that it and the money that's been taken by those smugglers or anything like that, or the mega dinghy. He's talking about number 10 North as it opens for business. He said number 10 North as the best day of his life. Really? I don't think he's checked the stats on illegal migration. And he spoke at the National Economic Council. The meeting comes amid scrutiny after it was revealed record that the new Prime Minister flew into Manchester on a government jet. Yeah, these net zero fanatics are all over the place. Well, we're joined now by GB News reporter Dougie Beattie with a special guest. I wonder who that is. Dougie Beattie, take it away.
Well, how are you, Nana? Yes, it has been quite the day here in number 10 North, and he has met with all the other mayors from in and around this area. And with me is Dame Andrea Jenkins. What did he have to say?
I mean, it was fascinating because normally, obviously, the last year I've been going to meetings with Starmer, etc. So it was a different atmosphere. With Starmer, it was very much a lot of distrust. I think my biggest frustration is the backslapping of the Starmer people. The mayors, they was doing the same with Andy Burnham now, so it's a two-facedness, but that's my northern honesty. But back to our new Prime Minister is committed to involving all as mayors, our regions, to ensure that we've got a seat at the table to really actually deliver through devolution.
Yeah, but the devolution he's talking about, you won't have fiscal levers, you won't be able to pass laws that put bits of Britain in competition with each other.
Absolutely.
And just sitting looking here now at this lovely square and the amount of police here, does it mean that this lovely area with its cafes and stuff will have to be run over by millions of pounds worth of security and no go areas?
Look, I mean, I represent a major rural area with across Lincolnshire, and but for me, it's about delivery because actions speak louder than words. We've heard successive governments truly talk about devolution, but actually delivering it is a different thing. And I'll give a prime example. The civil servants, just before Andy Burnham became Prime Minister, brought out the latest skills brief, which was actually rolling powers. So I want to see that they actually deliver on this. I mean, it could have been a civil servants pushing it through before the new Prime Minister, but we want the power. And I hope that Andy Burnham's words match what we heard in the room today.
So all in all, not a bad day for you?
No, it was a good day because for me, I got a chance to speak to the Prime Minister about my great county. I mean, we feed Britain, we power Britain and we defend Britain. So, you know, I wanted them to hear of how important we are.
Well, I mean, that's all very well and good, but the north of England also takes a massive amount of illegal migrants.
Yes.
Was that on the table today?
Illegal migration, it wasn't mentioned. It was mentioned, it was talking about growth. So, I mean, we got asked to put forward 2 ideas for growth, what we as our mayoralities want to deliver, and it was very much focused on those particular elements.
So staying away from...
It was staying away from a key issue which the country cares about, as I've been speaking about for many years, haven't I? Illegal migration.
Well, and you know, what does his vision? I know it's all great having this power and being able to speak to civil servants, but there is no real power behind it. You just have better access to civil servants. Is that not the case?
Well, no, because if you've truly got the ear of the Prime Minister to deliver, then that'd be great. But we've had it with Starmer in our meetings every few months, and he didn't deliver. So this time we've got somebody who's been a mayor. So let's see if he puts the proof in the pudding. That's what I want to see.
Thank you very much for joining us. It was great to see you. Well, it's nice to actually hear what was said in that meeting. The people of Manchester have been speaking to me as well, and here's what they had to say.
I'm hoping to see better devolution. Andy's been quite instrumental in that so far in his previous role, and I think if he can encourage that up and down the country and bring it to areas outside of Westminster, then it's going to hopefully benefit everybody.
I'm speaking as a Mancunian, but it's very London-centric, and actually, you know, you're serving the people of the whole of the UK. So it's not just about Manchester either. It's Newcastle, it's Scotland, Northern Ireland. You know, they should all really feel a bit more included, because I think you don't feel as included. So I think it's a great idea.
Yes, so really what we see from this is that it really is a talking shop. It's an instant access to the Prime Minister, not devolution as we would know it. Of course, I come from a devolved area in Northern Ireland, and all that has done is add another line of very expensive bureaucracy, This looks to be almost a Downing Street roadshow out round these areas and a place for these mayors to meet with the Prime Minister, which may not or may well be a bad thing.
Well, I just think it's just a distraction from the reality of what we're facing, which, of course, all the people living in Manchester will be happy that some sort of economic growth may be coming to their area because of that. But frankly, it's a completely powerless monolith that's going to cost the taxpayer a fortune. And I think you pointed it out earlier that it will just be like a talking shop for the mayors and civil servants, but they've got no power behind it. So there's great questions, by the way. Thank you, Dougie. Thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Yeah. Dougie Beattie, he's there. He was there with Dame Andrea Jenkins there. He was there outside Manchester, number 10 North. Great. Right, well, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and your very own real gold bar worth over £5,000. Here are the details.
What would you do with £60,000 cash? What would you do with a real gold bar? Well, both have to be won in our Golden Summer celebration. First, there's £60,000 in tax-free cash to bolster your bank account this year. You could spend it on treats, splash out on the family, or just save it for a rainy day. It's entirely up to you. Plus, we'll also give you a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. That's genuine gold that you could gift to a loved one or just lock up in your own personal vault. The gold and the cash really could be yours. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck indeed. Right, still to come, the government has halted the early prison release scheme amid outrage at the prospect of 2 of PC Andrew Harper's killers being potentially eligible for it. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Britain is not just a geographical expression. We are a people bound together by history and culture that are distinctively British. Join me to celebrate our music, theatre, artworks and literature, which we can explore and enjoy together.
Everybody's welcome.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories. And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Good afternoon, 25 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akwe. I'm in for Martin Daubney on GB News. Right, the government, they've halted the early prison release scheme. Now, this is a good thing, I would say. That's amid the outrage at the prospect of 2 of PC Andrew Harper's killers being freed from jail. Now, the scheme was designed to ease overcrowding, but could this latest U-turn now deepen the pressures on an already overstretched system? Why can't we be like China and build a prison really quickly? All right, let's speak to the Professor of Criminology at the University of Staffordshire, James Treadwell. James, all right, so the early release scheme, just to could you just explain it to us, to our viewers and listeners, so they can understand the lunacy that the government were about to embark on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that we ought to say to start off with in explaining this scheme is it's now become a sort of sustained get out of jail cause for the Ministry of Justice and the prison service, which is, you know, how do you deal with the fact that we haven't got space in our prisons? Well, you let people out early. And this actually, what was being proposed is the third and fourth tranche of early releases. We actually started in September last year releasing the lowest risk prisoners, and we've gradually rolled that out to extend the sentence discounts that are being given to from shorter term determinate sentences to longer term fixed sentence prisoners. So those who were going to be released were the more violent, the more sexually violent and the more dangerous offenders. Now, I mean, we might rightfully ask, how did we get to this point anyway, given that when previously we've released people who are less risk, it's often been shown to be catastrophic in reality. They've gone straight back into the communities, very often reoffended or been recalled into prison custody. So that safety valve has not actually worked in any way, shape or form. It puts greater pressure on an overstretched probation service who really can't do what they're supposed to do and monitor offenders in the community. And it's just created absolute chaos. So I think Burnham probably passing the Macclesfield test on this one has done the right thing in pausing, particularly when it comes to what was going to happen is sexual and violent offenders on fixed term sentences, rather than serving the 66% of their sentence that they should serve, we're going to get that discounted to 50%. Obviously, we've seen that, you know, some of those offenders, though, have committed really serious, hideous crimes, and it's caused outrage with victims. But this has been planned for so long, it's hard to believe that people haven't expressed outrage about it before this point.
Well, I think maybe because it's becoming a reality, and perhaps they didn't believe that the government would be so stupid, because they say some things and then they don't do them. But this is just an absolute outrage. You know, it's great to try and find some balance, which is the aim of this, obviously, to try and find balance and try and find somebody who thinks it's a good idea. But I can't find anyone. We can't find anyone that thinks it's a good idea to release violent prisoners early under an early release scheme because they happen to fit into the parameters of that scheme. What do you think, then, the government need to be doing?
Well, I think this is one of the things, Nana. We've had a long time to sort this out, you know, and there haven't been conversations about how we might sort it out and those that we need to imprison. And I think that there are some solutions, you know, but we need to have a wholesale system change. Now, I suspect that's what's going to be happening with Andy Burnham, and this concerns me. It's people like his cabinet secretary, Antonio Romero, who was at the Ministry of Justice and very much behind this sort of scheme, I think are going to be kind of, yes, ministering him into a position where we absolutely have to do this because prisons are going to be full and we have no other alternatives. But actually there are alternatives. They just require far better thinking than has been done so far. It needs more imagination and greater imagination. So one of the things I would suggest, for example, is we categorise our prisoners when we receive them into prison custody based largely on a security categorisation system that is now very, very dated. But if we look at some of our European neighbours, and I wouldn't emulate all of the things that Europe do, but also if we look towards the United States of America, for example, we can take, and both places do, low-risk prisoners and defer the period for them to report to prison custody. So we have prisons. We don't just have all prisons alike. We have high-security prisons. We have some open prisons. In open prisons, prisoners can be trusted. When we're jailing, for example, and we still should, people for example, corporate frauds or serious crimes, but where they're not violent, it would be possible to defer their sentences and allow them to report to prison to serve them at some future date. That happens in the United States. It happens throughout Europe. Why that hasn't been discussed in England and Wales is quite frankly beyond me. We could look at freeing some categories of prisoners, particularly I think in the female estate, there are a number, we could probably clear out a number of female prisoners to make space for more violent and sexually violent male offenders. We could also look at those people who've reached category D status, which is the lowest security category in prison conditions, those who can be trusted, and prioritise freeing those individuals, not just creating these sorts of blanket conditions which could create space. But you also say, and rightfully so, you know, other regimes can build prisons quickly. If we can have discussions, for example, between the Home Office and the Ministry of Defence about using former armed forces sites, why can't that happen for prisons, for example? Why can't the Ministry of Justice have those sorts of discussions? Why could we not create more approved premises for people to serve that are under secure conditions quickly? You know, repurposing perhaps in a city hotels, using electronic tagging, electronic monitoring for very, very low risk offenders and deferring their custodial element of their sentence. There are things that can be done, but there's been a staggering lack of imagination because I think, you know, it's become a real get out of jail card. And it's very, very easy in some ways for the Ministry of Justice to kick the can down the road, because once they release prisoners, it's back into other departments' problems. It's the problem for the Home Office and the police more so than it is for the prison service.
Well, listen, James, I've put together my own 5-point plan as I was listening to you, and I was getting really creative. Point number 1, I said make more community punishments, so you do more in the community, and fines, because people don't like it, especially those pro-Palestine marchers. Find them the value of the damage or whatever it is. The second point I put is stop putting people in prison for not paying the BBC licence. I think that's a nonsense. My next point is send foreign prisoners back instead of putting them in our prisons. And then the fourth point, build more prisons. And finally, bring back the death penalty. Then for those who deserve to die, we don't have to carry on paying for them. And they also make more space. What do you think? Give me marks out of 10 for that.
I've never agreed with the death penalty, partly because I think it puts prison staff and police officers at risk. I'm no great ideological opponent to it in some ways.
Just marks out of 10, because I've got to go to the news.
But by and large, not a bad idea. I certainly do think as well that when it comes to foreign prisoners, we do need to think about immigration detention centres, which are woefully underprovided, and we could clear people out of prison space into immigration detention and actually detain rather than freeing them to commit more crime and then locking them back in the prison system. And that's something that we could do. But yeah, it's staggering, isn't it, Nana, that you can sit down and make a plan, but it seems that those that are in charge have been incapable of doing that.
I'm giving myself 10 out of 10 because I think that death penalty really for certain offenders, I have no problem with that, and I would like to see it returned so that people are scared, because when people don't like to go to prison, as one of those prisons in South America demonstrated, you can bring down the crime figures quite quickly. All right, James Treadwell, thank you very much. He's a professor of criminology at the University of Staffordshire. Thank you. All right, still to come, a new poll suggests only 6% of Britons could volunteer to fight if the UK faced an invasion. I'll be discussing whether National Service should be brought back. But first, your latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you. The headlines at 4:34. Prime Minister Andy Burnham has officially opened Number 10 North in Manchester. The new branch of Downing Street forms part of the Prime Minister's aim to shift power from Westminster to regions across the country. Elsewhere, an extremely significant car bomb has been intercepted by Irish police near the border with Northern Ireland. A female driver in her 20s was arrested after the Garda discovered the military-grade explosive during an operation targeting dissident Republicans. Singer Chris Brown has pleaded guilty to a fray over a confrontation at a London nightclub in which a man was hit over the head with a bottle. And wildfires are continuing to rage across Europe. Tens of thousands have fled southwest France, and Spain has declared a national emergency. There's specific concerns about wildfires merging just outside of Madrid. Those are your latest GB News headlines. More from me at 5 o'clock.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again, it's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, looking ahead to the weekend, and if you're hoping for a bit of rain, well, there will be some, but the further south you are, well, the longer you're going to have to wait. That's because the more changeable weather is coming in from the north. We've already seen a bit of cloud, bit of rain across northern parts today. There is more of that to come through this evening and overnight, initially across northern parts of Scotland, but spilling in across the rest of Scotland into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England and Wales. The heaviest rain, though, and the strongest winds will be across northern Scotland as we go overnight. Some relatively heavy bursts of rain here. Further south, staying dry, largely clear skies, bit of mist, bit of fog perhaps, and temperatures holding up. Quite a warm night for many of us. So tomorrow morning, a wet start, a blustery start across northern, northwestern parts of Scotland. We are going to see that rain edging further southwards, so the more persistent rain will be clearing northern parts of Scotland, but through the morning it is going to be pretty soggy and blustery. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and starting to feed into parts of northern England, but the rest of England and Wales, well, it's a fine start to the day. Lots of sunshine, and in southern parts, well, it is going to stay sunny through the bulk of the day. And with that sunshine, as you would expect, temperatures rising. A different story further north, though. With this front that's bringing that cloud and that rain, there is slightly fresher air coming in. So temperatures will be a little bit lower across parts of Scotland. But in the south of England and also South Wales, temperatures getting to the mid to high 20s, possibly even low 30s around the London area. Later on tomorrow, that rain across more central areas will feed a bit further southwards, but as it goes, it is breaking up. So southern areas not seeing a huge amount of rain, but there will be a bit more rain on offer through Sunday. It's quite showery, so hit and miss in nature. Not everywhere will see some. And then the start of next week looks largely dry, especially towards the south. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. There is a collision on the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 4 and 3 in Swanley, causing delays. An obstruction is reported on the M23 southbound between junctions 8 and 9 in Reigate. The A428 is closed after the 81 near St Neots. In Scotland, the M74 northbound has lane restrictions with 2 lanes closed at junction 1 in Kingston, causing congestion. Across Wales, the A55 westbound from J35 Dobbs Hill to J33A Northop is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, there is disruption on Avanti West Coast services between Stafford and Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Acquare in for Martin on GB News. Now, a new poll suggests that only 6% of Britons would volunteer to fight if the UK faced an invasion. More than half of those surveyed think that the government is spending too little on defence, whilst almost a third believe that Britain could face a major military attack within the next 10 years. I think it might be sooner than that. So is it time to bring back national service? Well, joining me now is former British Army officer Bob Seeley and political commentator at Young Voices UK, Ted Newson. All right, I'm going to start with you. Ted Newson, What are your thoughts on it? You're young. So are you, Bob, by the way.
Yes. Well, previously you spoke about people doing more in the community. And absolutely, I think if people are economically inactive, if people aren't doing anything with their lives, why clog up the military with them? They should be picking up litter. They should be helping community gardens. They should be getting out of trouble, getting a bit of fresh air, and doing things that are actually productive in society rather than doing nothing. But I mean, we're British. We're proud. We've got proud military tradition. And ultimately, putting a whole load of civvies into the army, ask any senior ranking officer, and they will tell you is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, but if it's a compulsory national service scheme that all young people do, then they'll have to learn some sort of discipline, surely. I mean, there's no point litter picking if you're being attacked by Russia. Let's go to Bob Seeley. Bob Seeley.
Yeah, hi, Nana. You make a very good point. Look, Ted also makes some decent points. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, get everyone in uniform. I think national service could work for some people, but certainly a national and voluntary service where you spend 6 months getting out of your... So...
Oh, you've got a bit of a dodgy connection, Bob. You've got a dodgy connection, Bob. We'll come back to you. It's a shame because I wanted to hear what he was going to say.
Whether that's as a cadet,
he's
litter
back.
picking, but getting involved in community projects. Thanks.
Well, I was going to say, Bob, your line's a bit dodgy, so we'll try and come back to you on that. But let's come back to you, Ted, because actually part of national service doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be out there in combat. There are different elements. You might be helping out with litter picking. You might be helping out with community-based projects. It'll be a service to this country, services that are much needed. And there will be a military element of that national service to give people, young people, potentially more of a sort of patriotic approach to the country. I mean, surely that would be a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think you make a fair point there, Nana, but I think we need to take the kind of taxpayer angle here, in that if you serve in the military, the taxpayer is ultimately paying for this kind of disciplinarian training. If you join the CCF, if you join the Scouts, if you join any kind of local volunteer organisation, you're doing exactly the same job, you're getting the authority figures from the people above you, and the taxpayer's not on the hook for it. I think that's a much better idea than dragging people into the army against their will and ultimately irritating senior ranking officers rather than getting the proper guys in.
What if actually some people don't realise that this would be a good thing for them? Then they go and do it and love it, which is what often happens. And also there'll be that level of patriotism that emerges from young people who do that. If you look at Israel, the IDF, you see the pure, they love their country. Those people who are fighting in the Israeli military are passionate about Israel and they will fight for their country. We need to develop that skill because we need to develop that passion. Otherwise, come, say, a potential attack from Vladimir Putin, who's going to have any knowledge of military? Who's going to have any commitment to this country?
Well, I think you're right to say that young people do need a more kind of a sense of the nation, a sense of being proud to serve their country. That is a brilliant idea. But ultimately, I've gone on here before to talk about the mental health crisis, and especially in young people. And if you've got young people who are potentially quite mentally ill going into the army in a war environment, that's not going to help them. That's going to further traumatise them. And, well, fast forward a couple of years and we're going to be talking about rogue soldiers, and we're going to be talking about people who were trained to kill, who went mental and maybe turned their arms on the population. So we do have to be incredibly careful about how we do it. We do need to bring back a sense of patriotism, absolutely. But I think there's an awful lot of civic ceremonies we can bring back. Certainly bringing back something like Christianity is a lot more beneficial than immediately kind of pressing the nuclear option and drafting a whole lot of people into the army.
Oh, come off it, Ted. Loads of young people going crazy because they're in the... Listen, there's a lot of people signing up saying they've got anxiety. The worst thing for anxiety is sitting there doing nothing. Better to be doing something than ruminating in your house, worrying about maybe stepping outside. You need to get off your backside and do something. That's what a lot of people would say. And that's just somebody with mental health. We're not talking about people who are seriously sick, but the proportion of young people that have anxiety is massive. And I wouldn't really call that, it is, most people are anxious. And If I stayed in my house all day, my levels of anxiety would increase because I'd have nothing else to do but think about being stuck in my house. Whereas if I've got something to do, I might even find a passion in that thing, then I take my mind off it. I'm amongst other people as well. A lot of mental health is caused by people because they're kind of lonely as well, young people not socialising. This would be a way of young people socialising, doing other skills that may be outside their comfort zone. I know it sounds crazy, but doing things that could end up creating bonds between young people and also patriotism towards this country. What on earth could be wrong with that?
Well, I think we're in agreement that young people do need to do something with their lives.
Absolutely.
The rates of people staying inside, being on their phone all the time, not having contact with the outside world, that is a genuine issue. But creating this sense of patriotism, getting people outside, why leave the taxpayer on the hook for that when you can leave people to their own volition and they can get into nice outdoor activities like sailing or scouts or
they don't,
I don't know, fishing, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a nice idea, but they don't, Ted. There are many young people claiming benefits for anxiety who are not planning ever to go to work, and the taxpayer's paying for that. I'm sorry, but as a taxpayer...
Well, we're
do you
a
know
liberal
what?
society,
No, I'm just going to finish this. As a taxpayer, I'm all right paying for a national service to help the young people get off their backsides instead of paying for them all because they've got anxiety. I want to bring Bob Seeley back in. I mean, I might be being too harsh, but at least I've got another voice to tell me that. Bob.
Oh, harsh, and I agree. Look, Ted has a couple of decent points, but I think I'm more with you on this. So just to very quickly to cover some of the things that you were both saying. National service, military national service ain't for everybody, but actually it would be for a surprising number. And I think it's a good thing in itself. It gets people out of themselves. You're forced to mix with people from all different walks of life. For some people, they would prefer doing voluntary charity and community work. That's absolutely fine. You should have a choice, absolutely. But I do think it's a really good thing. I see it in other countries where you have an expectation that when you enter young adulthood, you give something back, whether that's going off to be a cadet for 6 months or 12 months, or whether that's going to help grannies across the road for 6 months, 12 months, or do something productive. Like you, Nana, I'm happy to spend money on that, especially that we waste so much money on really dumb things. Let's actually spend some money on really good things. And as for the mental health point, very briefly, I remember when I was in the army, just become an MP a few years ago, and everyone was waiting for this big report on mental health in the army. The BBC were lined up because they thought the report was going to say mental health's really bad. And when they actually found out that people in the army have great rates of mental health compared to most people in society, they completely lost interest in the story. In many ways, it is a very psychologically healthy place to be in the army because you know what everyone earns, you've got clear hierarchies, everyone mixes along, everyone has the same shared agenda. You know, even in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, where I were, actually, you mix in and you get on with the job.
All right, well, listen, thank you for that. Bob Seeley, he's a former British Army officer and also Young Voices UK, Ted Newson. Thank you so much. All right, well, look, we've got some breaking news. A police boat carrying armed officers has crashed near Westminster Bridge in central London. Police sources have said that casualties are reportedly being treated by paramedics on a black, rigid, inflatable boat. A number of ambulances, fire crews and police vehicles have also been seen parked alongside embankment with a helicopter circling overhead. So just to reiterate that breaking news, you're seeing live pictures now. A police boat carrying armed officers has crashed near Westminster Bridge in central London. Police sources have said that casualties are reportedly being treated by paramedics on a black, rigid, inflatable boat, and there are a number of ambulances, fire crews and police vehicles which have also been parked alongside the embankment with a helicopter circling overhead. We'll bring you more updates on that story. Coming up next, and Meghan shares a glimpse into her Sussex summer holiday, including what appears to be a family visit to Princess Diana's childhood home. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast in Europe.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat we've had this week across some parts of Europe, that is now starting to ease and clear away towards the south. Nonetheless, there's some high humidity around, still some high temperatures. And with that, there's the risk of some heavy thundery showers affecting parts of northern Spain, southern France through tomorrow. Mostly dry for Italy for a day or so, similar across parts of Greece, with today's showers clearing away towards the east, more affecting Turkey. But there is the risk of some further showers for both Italy and Croatia into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
What do you think about where we're going to get our future athletes and our Olympians from when we're telling our children, oh, you can't go out and partake in sports today because it's a bit hot?
It's a bit hot. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, you're absolutely right. And, you know, not only are we cancelling sports days in some schools, and you said, you know, have to. No, they don't have to. This is the choice that the schools are making, and the heads are making. So my granddaughter's school, I've just done the school run this morning. They're not cancelling their sports day. You know, they're just being sensible. Why not move it to the morning? You know, I've just dropped her off now. It's 17 degrees. So they're perfectly capable of running at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's lots of ways that they could think outside of the box and do this. I mean, Labour is just about to cut 22% from the sports budget as well.
GB News, the People's Channel. Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
Industrial action in the 70s, all of that is part of the culture of that great town, and it's something that reflects a lot about the rest of us.
Right, but the word culture does not...
It doesn't mean opera.
That's history.
Yeah.
That's the history of the town. How is this money spent? Whose money is it, right? I presume it's taxpayers' money, i.e. my money anyway, and if you pay tax, Susie, that will
I do
helpful.
pay a bit, Kelvin.
Okay.
Yeah. Not as much as you, I'm sure.
No, but how much do we spend on the City of Culture for Hull? Do you know?
Well, look, so these shortlisted towns, they will receive £60,000 each to develop their full bids. Apparently, it's about restoring pride in local areas. They want to deliver a decade of national renewal. They want to shine a light on local visions and voices, they say, from across the UK.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So you go along to the car showroom and only like 10%, at most maybe 15 pay cash. The rest buy on some form of financing. And you often buy, it's a bit like a mortgage, and it's like buying a mortgage from the estate agent, which we all know is a terribly bad idea. Yeah. But this is what people did. And the deal is, the scandal is, the guys in the showroom were acting as dealers and brokers, and they were in many cases inflating the interest rate that you paid so that they could get bigger commission. And they didn't declare that. So you basically ended up paying more for your car than you would otherwise have done if you'd gone into the open market and found yourself, you know, a better deal.
How did that come to light?
Well, over many years. I mean, this has been going on since 2007.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Martin Daubney's on GB News. I'm Nana Aquare. The Duchess of Sussex, she's taken to Instagram to share a collection of summer holiday photos of the whole Sussex family. No, not including Thomas or any of the others. No. The images feature numerous shots of Prince Archie, Princess Lilibet, and they're playing outside alongside a shot of Harry and Meghan laughing together. Well, let's speak to former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray. Charles Ray, we haven't got long, but let's talk about this. So this is nice to see the family together, but it's always speckled with a bit of because they're not genuine, are they?
Well, they're lovely photographs. If you see them, they're very, very nice. We've still got back shots of the kids, which is fair enough. They don't want anybody to see their faces, which is fine. We don't know where the pictures are actually taken. We believe that some of them were taken at Althorp. We think that the black and white one of Harry and Meghan was taken at a restaurant in Portugal, and the one where they're going into the sea That could be Portugal or California. Who knows? The problem, as you quite rightly say, is you have to take this with a bit of suspicion. What are they going to use these photographs for eventually? Are they going to use them in this so-called Harry documentary that he's preparing for a tribute to his late mother to mark the 30 years of the anniversary? And what other pictures are going to crop up? You know, Meghan doesn't do these sort of things they're not just happy family shots. They're going to be used for other things as well.
Because I find it a little bit unbelievable. And the reason why is not because they're not nice pictures and maybe they were having a nice time. It's just that there's almost like in front of you can see how cruel they've been to members outside their immediate family. And when you see that, every time I see these shots, I think, yeah, but how they treated the Queen. Our late Queen. And I look at it and I think, yeah, but you wrote that book, didn't you? And yeah, but you haven't spoken to Dad, Meghan. In fact, Harry's never met him. And yeah, he was almost dying and you never went to see him. In fact, he is dying still. He's very, very old. You still haven't gone to see him. I can't take these people seriously. I don't believe they have any empathy.
You're absolutely right. All these sort of things make you doubt what their ultimate motives are. And let's not forget, these pictures were released the day after the picture of Prince George was released to mark his 30th birthday. Now, when the Waleses release pictures, it's for a purpose, like a birthday or an event that they're going to. You know, Harry and Meghan, you got to be suspicious that they just did it to sort of try and take the gloss off that. But you're right. You know, you cannot separate the fact that these are nice, happy pictures, but with all the other baggage that they have, you know, you have to be suspicious of it.
On the flip side, and on the good side, I mean, they did eventually take the children, by the sounds of it, to see the King and Queen Camilla, and that sounded like it went on quite well.
I'm told that lasted about an hour at Highgrove, and the Queen was there as well. And remember, the Queen got slagged off by Harry in the book Spare. So I'd have loved to have been a fly on that wall watching the interaction between those two. But I think that Camilla wanted to be there to make sure that accounts don't vary all that much.
All right. Well, listen, Charles Ray, really good to talk to you. Let's just remind some people of that breaking news. A police boat carrying armed officers has crashed near Westminster Bridge in central London. Police sources have said. So stay tuned. We'll bring you more on that breaking story. Thank you to Charles Ray. We'll be back very shortly. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is a collision on the M25 clockwise between junctions 26 and 27 in Waltham Abbey. The M1 southbound is affected by a collision between junctions 10 and 9 in Redbourne. North of the border, the M90 northbound at junction 1 in Scotstoun has 2 lanes restricted, causing queues. Across Wales, the A55 westbound from J35 Dobbs Hill to J33A Northup is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, there is disruption on Avanti West Coast services between Stafford and Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
What would you do with £60,000 cash? What would you do with a real gold bar? Well, both have to be won in our Golden Summer celebration. First, there's £60,000 in tax-free cash to bolster your bank account this year. Plus, we'll also give you a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Martin Daubney's show with me, Nana Acquia, on GB News, broadcasting here until 6. Here's what's coming up on today's show. New footage has been released in the Henry Novak murder case. The video appears to show convicted killer Vikram Digwa asking his mother, Kiran Kaur, to take away the knife after he stabbed Henry Novak. Breaking news, 5 officers have been injured after a police boat crashed near Westminster Bridge in central London. Police sources have said, with a number being recovered from the River Thames. We'll give you the latest on that, bringing you the latest.
Is at your service. It's here for you.
Andy Burnham opens the doors to number 10 North in Manchester today, promising to shift power away from Westminster. No mentions of the boats, though. Is this just an expensive, time-consuming gimmick? And a record number, 165 migrants crossed the Channel in one boat yesterday, the largest number ever crammed onto a single migrant vessel. And as many as 200 more have crossed this morning. And the government has halted the early prison release scheme amid outrage at the prospect of 2 of PC Andrew Harper's killers being freed from jail. But could this move plunge our prisons into fresh crisis? That's all coming up in this hour. Yeah, we'll bring you more on that breaking news story of that boat that's crashed on the Thames in Westminster. We'll have to find out more about exactly what happened there and bring you all of those details. Also, we'll be discussing all things dealing with Vikram Digwa and exactly what happened, why his mother only got 3 years. But also that recording that's been released, the juries would have seen that, and I still question why that sentence was so low. But as of send me your thoughts, your comments, gbnews.com/your say, or scan the QR code that you see on the screen. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Katie Bowen.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The headlines at 2 minutes past 5. We start with that breaking news. 5 police officers have been injured after a number had to be recovered from the River Thames when their boat hit Westminster Bridge, the Metropolitan Police has said. A number of ambulances, fire crews and police vehicles are reportedly attending the incident. A Metropolitan Police spokesman has said that at around 3:45 p.m. today, a boat from the Met's Marine Policing Unit struck Westminster Bridge. A number of officers entered the water but were recovered. Additional officers responded alongside the London Ambulance Service and London Fire Brigade. We understand 5 officers were injured and are receiving treatment. We await an update on the extent of their injuries. At this stage, we don't believe any members of the public were involved or injured. The circumstances of the incident will be thoroughly reviewed, but at this stage, our priority is the well-being of the officers involved. More on that breaking story as soon as we get it. Elsewhere, Prime Minister Andy Burnham has described his first day of work at the new No. 10 North in Manchester as the best day of his life. The new branch of Downing Street forms part of the Prime Minister's aim to shift power from Westminster to regions across the country. Education Secretary Lucy Powell and First Secretary of State Louise Hay are expected to work regularly from the Manchester base, with up to 300 civil servants expected to join them by the end of next year. Mr Burnham has chaired a meeting of the National Economic Council, a cabinet committee first launched in 2008 to respond to economic challenges around the UK. The Prime Minister spoke at the official opening.
That is what No. 10 North is all about, putting power in every postcode so that people can turn things around for themselves and make changes, just as this great city has done and the other English cities are doing through devolution. Turning things round because of that ability to be able to do more for themselves.
In other news, an extremely significant car bomb has been intercepted by Irish police near the border with Northern Ireland in a seizure which has been described as very worrying. A female driver in her 20s was arrested after the Garda discovered the military-grade explosive during an operation targeting dissident Republicans. The car was travelling in County Monaghan, around 6.2 miles from the open border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. Commissioner Justin Kelly gave an update on the arrests made.
What we found was an extremely significant seizure. So this was an explosive device. We arrested one person at the scene, as I said, and we arrested a second person in Dublin. So we're satisfied that this is dissident Republican activity, and our investigations are continuing in relation to it.
New footage has been released in the Henry Novak murder case, which appears to show convicted killer Vikram Digwa asking his mother, Kieran Kaur, to take away the knife after he stabbed the 18-year-old student. Meanwhile, new CCTV footage also shows Kieran Kaur outside her home. The footage was released by the Crown Prosecution Service after she was jailed last week for 3 years at Southampton Crown Court for assisting an offender. The lawyer representing the families of 3 young girls murdered by the Southport killer have accused him of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to a psychiatric hospital. The Ministry of Justice confirmed he was transferred from HMP Belmarsh to Broadmoor, the high-security psychiatric hospital in Berkshire. He murdered Elsie Dot Stankham, BB King and Alistair Silva Aguiar and injured 8 other children and 2 adults in an attack at a Taylor Swift-themed dance class in July 2024. And wildfires are continuing to rage across Europe. Tens of thousands have fled southwest France, and Spain has declared a national emergency. Authorities ordered a total evacuation of the Cap Ferret region of France. President Emmanuel Macron said he had requested help from the European Union as the country's battle against wildfires intensifies. Meanwhile, the Spanish government last night declared a national emergency after a series of wildfires threatened communities near Madrid and in the neighbouring province of Avila, forcing more than 10,000 people to evacuate as firefighters struggled to contain the blaze. Those are your latest GBNews headlines. A quick look at the markets.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
The pound will buy you $1.33 and 1.17 euros. The price of gold is £3,055 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 10,711 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Right, welcome to the Martin Daubney Show with me, Nana Akwe. It's just coming up to 8 minutes after 5 o'clock. Andy Burnham. Now, he's described the opening of No. 10 North as the best day of his life as he spoke to the National Economic Council. Perhaps he didn't check how many people had come via dinghy this morning. The meeting comes amid scrutiny after it was revealed that the new Prime Minister flew into Manchester on a government jet. Well, I'm joined now by GB News reporter Doogie Beattie, who is there in Manchester for us. So, Doogie, how has today gone? Have you managed to speak to some political figures going into this No. 10 North? Who Who's attending? Who goes to number 10 North? What's the plan?
Well, it's really a plan that was brought in not by Andy Burnham, but actually by George Osborne during the time of Cameron's government. And of course, David Cameron didn't really force through that devolution on that. Neither did Theresa May, neither did Boris Johnson, although Boris tweaked with it round the edges. And then, of course, Rishi Sunak went back to ignoring this, mayors having more powers, etc., from each region. Keir Starmer didn't enforce it either. So Andy Burnham has picked it up and said, we can do it. Now, of course, this is all thanks to Brexit, because what these mayors are talking about, and I spoke to a lot of them when they were on their way to that meeting, is having fiscal levers that they can pull. In other words, tax dropping in one area, maybe business tax, maybe inheritance tax, etc., and making it more regional, not by a massive amount, otherwise the tax that was going back into central government would be a total shortfall in there somewhere along the line. But it's giving these regions a chance to compete with other regions that maybe have more to offer, and that could be a good thing, or it could be a race to the bottom. But Andy Burnham said it was one of the best days of his life, and I can see why. He's a Mancunian. The people here, actually, if you can just squeeze around there, you can actually see that now. The people that are gathered outside here waiting on Andy Burnham coming out, because they are all very excited that their man is in 10 Downing Street in London, and now he wants to bring it back to Manchester itself. And I spoke to a few of the people in Manchester, and here's what they had to say.
I'm hoping to see better devolution. Andy's been quite instrumental in that so far in his previous role, and I think if he can encourage that up and down the country and bring it to areas outside of Westminster, then it's going to hopefully benefit everybody.
Not speaking as a Mancunian, but it's very London-centric, and actually, you know, you're serving the people of the whole of the UK. So it's not just about Manchester either, it's Newcastle, it's Scotland, Northern Ireland. You know, they should all really feel a bit more included, because I think you don't feel as included, so I think it's a great idea.
Yes, you can hear those people there. They're very excited. Some are questioning what's going on here. But Andy Burnham himself, he had some things to say to the media today. Here he is.
That is what number 10 North is all about. Putting power in every postcode so that people can turn things around for themselves and make changes, just as this great city has done and the other English cities are doing through devolution. Turning things round because of that ability to be able to do more for themselves.
So you are, Nana, great excitement, but nobody really knows exactly what is in the plan. They know what they want, but they don't all want the same thing. We await to see.
Well, we shall wait and see. In that clip, though, he looked like a sort of more animated Keir Starmer, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know. I'd just like to hear him mention the boats. Maybe we'll get something on that maybe in the next few days. Dougie Beattie, thank you very much. That's GB News' national reporter, Dougie Beattie, there in Manchester, where Andy Burnham is currently setting up number 10 at North. Well, I'm joined now by journalist Angela Epstein to get her thoughts on this. Angela, some people might say that it's great, number 10 North. What is it? Growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. Sounds great, doesn't really mean anything. What do you think?
I think, hi Nana, I think you've hit the nail on the head. It is meaningless. I know you had a couple of fellow Mancunians there, and I'm in Manchester, as you said today, saying it's a good idea. I've spoken to many people because I live here, and we've talked about this a lot. Just people, whether it's people in the shops, in the hairdressers, colleagues, friends, whatever, and the predominant view has been what a load of performative political gimmickry. What this country needs is big ideas underpinned with very clear empirical evidence of how those will be achieved, be it the well costed, how realistic they are. Those are the big ideas that we need, and location is irrelevant from that perspective. We have constituency MPs precisely so that people all around the country can be represented in government. And this idea of having a number 10 up north, and I know that building well, I know I've lived in Manchester my whole life, is is for the birds. I mean, I can't imagine, first of all, what the cost was when he flew in on the government jet today. What was the cost for the security for this? What about the number of staff that will be relocated here? Is this really the best way to spend taxpayers' money when what we need are the massive ideas to deal with the spiralling welfare bill, uncontrolled illegal immigration, the cost of living crisis, our anemic defence budget? These are massive, massive problems that are befuddling this country, and moving up the M1 or across the skies in this case, as he did today, will not address those alone.
When you move house, I'm moving house soon, it's going to be a nightmare. You move and then you're sort of unsettled for quite some time, and then you settle in. It takes months and months and months. This is the same sort of thing when you're setting up another office somewhere else where you're devolving supposedly power. But what concerns me with all of this is that I think he's got his priorities all wrong. If that was your priority, when you just, on the day that you said is one of the best days of your life, 200 people have come here by dinghy, the day before 165 on one boat, which is the largest amount ever, and you've not addressed it or mentioned it, I'd be really concerned.
Hugely concerned. And we talk about that. You've just touched on the complexities of when you move house, knowing where everything is. How does it work with two sets of advisors, some in London, some in Manchester, working potentially to the same brief? Because if he's governing the country from Manchester, it doesn't mean that he's only dealing with northern issues. You're absolutely right. Being Prime Minister is a big job with big concerns, and just kind of coming up the road to Manchester is not a way to resolve them. I'd also add very quickly, Nana, that what does it mean to be northern? I mean, I've lived in Manchester my whole life. I feel very northern, but I'm quite aware that the people of, say, Cumbria, up in the, past the Lake District, up towards the borders of Scotland, feel northern in a different way to the way I do, to the way the people of Scarborough do, on the East Coast. So the North is a big homogenous area. What about the rural communities or the suburban communities that are way away from Manchester? So this kind of, as I said, this performative soundbite that Number 10 North, because it's here in Manchester, can address all those voices is ridiculous. Only strong policy, and like you say, touching on massive issues like stopping the boats or the spiralling welfare bill, will be dealt with by serious political talent with strong ideas and evidence of how they'll do it. Not with moving up to Manchester because it's northern. I mean, that's just nonsense.
Well, some people might argue that, and somebody did argue that it'll give the civil servants who move up there, I don't know which ones are going to go, uproot their houses, and I don't know what they're going to get for going there, but the civil servants who go there will then get a bit greater feel of what's going on in other areas rather than a sort of London-centric image.
I think that I always thought that was such a kind of, respectfully, I always thought that was such I know you're saying it sort of as devil's advocate, but when people say that, it's nonsense. It's a bit like, obviously there are things that we understand better in the North for being in the North, and what unites us are the things that make us different, and understanding of different communities. All of those things are important. But if you can see that money is being spent less well in one part of the country than it is in the other, or that we have a poor transport system that can't allow you to go from east to west across the North, for example, you can see that by the figures and the numbers and the data. You don't need to sit in the place in order to understand it. I work in London a lot, and I sort of get a sense of the place there. I would feel perfectly capable of having a discussion about how London can be improved, even if I didn't go, just by looking at the evidence. That's why I just think this all suits Andy Burnham. He has a northern constituency. He's working on a Friday, interestingly, which allows him for a long weekend. He didn't choose a Wednesday, did he? No. I think, and like you say, for it to say this is the greatest day of his life, when we have a welfare bill that is just ridiculous, the highest tax burden for 70 years, that the army at its smallest since the Napoleonic Wars. These are big issues that need to be addressing, and him sitting in Heron House in Manchester is not going to give him the greater edge of being able to deal with those things. Great ideas, great costed policy is what will make this country, resolve all the problems that beset it at the moment.
All right, Angela Epstein, thank you very much. She's a journalist. That's journalist Angela Epstein. All right, well, just a reminder of that breaking news. 5 officers have been injured after a police boat crashed near Westminster Bridge in central London. Police sources have said that with a number being recovered from the River Thames. So just to reiterate your breaking news, 5 officers injured after a police boat crashed near Westminster Bridge. All right, well, I'm joined now by former Scotland Yard Detective Peter Blexley. Peter, welcome to the programme. I'm not quite sure what has happened, but what tends to be happening on the water at these times? Why would there be officers in a boat on near the bridge in any case? What's happening there?
Well, the Marine Policing Unit play a very important part of London life. They sometimes save lives. In fact, they do that on a fairly regular basis. They often have the very unenviable task of retrieving bodies from the River Thames, and they provide an important part of security in terms of sometimes being able to rapidly move armed officers from one part of London to another. So this will be a major concern to the Metropolitan Police, and there will be a very thorough investigation. It's almost unheard of for Marine Policing units to have an incident like this. I'm sure many people want to know, was it mechanical defect? Was it a lack of maintaining the vessel properly? Or was it pilot error? We shall have to wait and see. But my first thought is, I suspect there's a lot of embarrassment heading the way of the Metropolitan Police.
Ever heard of that happening? I have to be honest, in all my years, I've never heard of a police boat crashing. Obviously, they've got a lot of work to do on the Thames and things like that, but it's a bit of a shocker. So presumably there'll be some sort of inquiry into it, and once it's found out that... If it was sort of an error, in your view, what would happen next? I mean, because we don't know what's happened. I guess we're OK to speculate because it's the police and, it's not some scary crime incident.
Yes, indeed. And of course, my thoughts are with the officers that are injured. I hope they all make a swift and full recovery. But this is, as far as my memory is concerned, and I've been around policing since the 1970s, utterly unprecedented. A very, very rare occurrence indeed. So there will be a full and very thorough investigation. The Port of London Authority will no doubt want to be involved because, of course, incidents like this on the River Thames are very, very important. It's a very dangerous thing to happen. We hear that officers entered the water, and the Thames can be absolutely perilous, no matter what time of the year, for people who go into it. So I'm very glad to hear that all the officers have been safely taken out of the water. But nonetheless, that doesn't detract from the fact that this is a serious incident that will need a very thorough investigation, and my gut instinct is telling me there's going to be some embarrassment for the police.
Yeah, does feel a little bit embarrassing, doesn't it, really? Well, never mind. Peter Blexley, thank you very much for talking to us. He's a former Scotland Yard detective. And again, our thoughts go to those who may have been injured in that incident. Let's hope it's nothing too serious. Right now, time for the Great British Giveaway, your chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and your very own real gold bar worth over £5,000. Here are the details.
What would you do with £60,000 cash? What would you do with a real gold bar? Well, both have to be won in our Golden Summer celebration. First, there's £60,000 in tax-free cash to bolster your bank account this year. You could spend it on treats, splash out on the family, or just save it for a rainy day. It's entirely up to you. Plus, we'll also give you a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. That's genuine gold that you could gift to a loved one or just lock up in your own personal vault. The gold and the cash really could be yours. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls Bundles cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Right, still to come. The BBC turns the tables on Donald Trump. Sort of, really, but not, because he's just highlighted a very bad thing that they did. They're demanding that his private messages be released to prove that he caused January 6 riots as it battles for his $7.5 billion lawsuit over the controversially edited Panorama documentary. But next, the lawyer representing the families of 3 girls murdered by the Southport killer has accused him of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to Broadmoor, which is a psychiatric hospital. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. 27 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akwe, in for Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, the lawyer representing the families of the Southport victims has accused the killer of trying to manipulate the system after he was transferred from prison to Broadmoor, which is a psychiatric hospital. Officials say that the killer will remain at the high-security psychiatric hospital until he's assessed as fit to return to prison. Well, let's speak with the mother of Barnaby Webber, Emma Webber. Emma, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Now, what are your thoughts on this? Some people might say that if he has psychiatric ailments, which you clearly cannot be sane if you are doing things like this. That a psychiatric hospital will be the best place for you because potentially you can be sedated, they can administer all sorts of medication so that you cannot be as effective in terms of hurting people as you would be if you were, say, in a prison.
Yeah, sadly, I think I speak from more lived experience of understanding these type of, I call them criminals. Callaghan was who murdered Barney was able to manipulate the system, and he went straight to Ashworth on an indefinite hospital order, where he stays and continues to get his benefits. I think from my honest opinion, from what I've read of this tragedy and know of this tragedy, this is somebody who's so grossly mentally unstable and unwell. However, he knows what he's doing. He's not been diagnosed with any form of psychosis. I took some time to read about the reports of his past, which is extensive, and also during the prosecution. No, so I believe that he is. It's part of his manipulation. I completely agree and applaud the legal team and the Prison Officers Association for what they said today, because trust me, it is a different ride in a secure unit than it is in a prison.
Well, I can imagine. I don't know whether we can show the picture of where he will be staying or the kind of room he'll be staying in. But to me, and not being insulting to Premier Inn, but it did look a little bit like a Premier Inn. It looked like he had a TV embedded in the wall, bigger than my TV at home. He has big windows. In a prison, that's not often the case. And I'm sure most prisons are clean, but we have the picture up there. Nice curtains, a desk, a decent-looking bed. This is something that most people would be quite happy to stay in there for a considerable amount of time. It just doesn't seem right.
No, it is. I put something on my X post earlier, which it is punchy, but it is what I feel, and I do believe I'm entitled to my opinion. Others may not agree with me. You know, I'm not a big fan of reading sort of, accounts of Broadmoor and its dire history. You've just shown what it's really like, and what you have to remember that at the end of the day, this is a hospital. This is run by clinicians and hospital managers. It is not a penal system, and you can see the colour schemes. You can see the activity. We know what kind of activities Callaghan is able to engage in, and you know, they've committed the most heinous acts. Yeah. These are mentally unwell people, but they knew what they were doing and they planned it. I believe he's manipulated. It's coming up to 2 years, isn't it, since his atrocities were carried out. I find it very difficult to have any sympathy whatsoever for him, or certainly for his family in how they behaved during the trial. But at least he got convicted with 50 odd years. So I'm assuming he won't therefore go into the hospital system and like many on indefinite hospital orders are out within 10 years. And I guess he can go back to prison, but I understand the chances of that aren't terribly high. I think he's got what he wanted.
There does seem to be this behaviour where you almost absolve someone of blame because they have mental illness. And I don't think that is right. If you may have a mental illness, but if you do something that is in breach of the law or something as terrible as this, in a sense, it was kind of premeditated, really. He went there, he'd done something similar or planned something similar and was stopped by his father. He went there and did this awful, awful thing. And then he seems to be getting some softer treatment because he's got a mental health condition. I'd say most people, anyone who carried out something like that wasn't well.
Yeah, it's obviously my opinion is going to be very, very biased. But I think you opened with who would commit a crime like this if they were of sound mind?
Exactly.
Nobody would do that, would they? But mental illness and diminished responsibility especially is grossly overused, as it was in our case. And I've been involved with the Law Commission, who are reviewing the grading of our homicide laws in this country. And I think the first consultation paper is available now, where they are recommending a tiering. And I do believe that, it's a little bit like in America. where at the moment it's a divide between murder and manslaughter, and that's not appropriate. This is, we don't have the death penalty anymore, but what we do, we have hundreds of crimes committed, like Kalakain committed, like Rudikwana has committed, of the most grievous, horrific sort, and you know, they're manipulating, they're playing the system.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen,
everyone's going to agree with me, and I'm very aware of that. But you know, I'm going to stand firm in my opinion on this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the death penalty. I'm sorry, but that's where I would be going with crimes like this. I'm sorry, you know, if it sounds horrible to people, but I'd have no problem with it because, you know, I'd like to take people like this off the earth. I don't mean to be cruel or horrible in any way, but I just find...
Well, think how much they cost us. You know, Kalakain costs about £300,000 to £500,000 a year, and at the moment he is still in receipt of his monthly benefits, which are hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You know, and we're trying to pick up our lives. We're trying to work, you know, and the wider families and victims. It's completely swayed. I do think that the entire system, the criminal justice system, is archaic. It's outdated, and I think it's fearful. And we need to not be a fearful society anymore. We need to do the right thing and act appropriately. And sadly, I believe, you know, these type of people are a waste of oxygen on this earth. But I'm going to say that because they took my beautiful child at 19 years old.
I'm so sorry.
They've got to go somewhere. I do understand that. But can you rehabilitate somebody like Kalakain, Rudikwana? No.
It's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, waste of energy. I'm thankful I haven't been through what you've been through, Emma, but I must say that you've done an incredible job really bringing this to the forefront, and keep going. We're very grateful for you. Thank you very much. That's Emma Webb. Thank you. All right, I'd say bring back the death penalty. I just don't know why we're paying for people like that. But hey, what do you think? Am I being too cruel? gbnews.com/your say. Is there any point to them? Ready? Stay with us, stay still to come. The BBC turns the tables on Donald Trump, demanding his private messages to prove he caused the January 6th riots as it battles his £7.5 billion lawsuit over controversially edited the Panorama documentary. But now, if you're travelling home from work, here is the traffic and travel update. Don't forget to stay with us on digital radio.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. There is a collision on the M25 anti-clockwise at junction 12 in Thorpe. The M5 northbound between junctions 2 and 1 is also affected by a collision. The A5 is closed after the A4553. The A428 is closed after the A1 near St Neots. In Scotland, the A90 northbound at Kinfons is restricted following a road traffic incident. Across Wales, the A55 westbound from J35 Dobbs Hill to J33A Northop is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, there is disruption on Avanti West Coast services between Stafford and Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 5:36 and breaking news. 5 police officers have been injured after a number had to be recovered from the River Thames when their boat hit Westminster Bridge, the Metropolitan Police has said. A number of ambulances, fire crews and police vehicles are reportedly attending the incident. Elsewhere, Prime Minister Andy Burnham has officially opened Number 10 North in Manchester. The new branch of Downing Street forms part of the Prime Minister's aim to shift power from Westminster to regions across the country. An extremely significant car bomb has been intercepted by Irish police near the border with Northern Ireland. A female driver in her 20s was arrested after the Garda discovered the military-grade explosive during an operation targeting dissident Republicans. And wildfires are continuing to rage across Europe. Tens of thousands have fled southwest France, and Spain has declared a national emergency. There's specific concerns about wildfires merging just outside of Madrid. There's your latest headlines. More news at 6 o'clock.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello
go again. It's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, looking ahead to the weekend, and if you're hoping for a bit of rain, well, there will be some, but the further south you are, well, the longer you're going to have to wait. That's because the more changeable weather is coming in from the north. We've already seen a bit of cloud, bit of rain across northern parts today. There is more of that to come through this evening and overnight, initially across northern parts of Scotland, but spilling in across the rest of Scotland into Northern Ireland and northern parts of England and Wales. The heaviest rain, though, and the strongest winds will be across northern Scotland as we go overnight. Some relatively heavy bursts of rain here. Further south, staying dry, largely clear skies. Bit of mist, bit of fog perhaps, and temperatures holding up quite a warm night for many of us. So tomorrow morning, a wet start, a blustery start across northern, northwestern parts of Scotland. We are going to see that rain edging further southwards, so the more persistent rain will be clearing northern parts of Scotland, but through the morning it is going to be pretty soggy and blustery. That rain pushing into Northern Ireland and starting to feed into parts of northern England, but the rest of England and Wales, well, it's a fine start to the day. Lots of sunshine, and in southern parts, well, it is going to stay sunny through the bulk of the day. And with that sunshine, as you would expect, temperatures rising. A different story further north, though. With this front that's bringing that cloud and that rain, there is slightly fresher air coming in. So temperatures will be a little bit lower across parts of Scotland. But in the south of England and also South Wales, temperatures getting to the mid to high 20s, possibly even low 30s around the London area. Later on tomorrow, that rain across more central areas will feed a bit further southwards, but as it goes, it is breaking up. So southern areas not seeing a huge amount of rain, but there will be a bit more rain on offer through Sunday. It's quite showery, so hit and miss in nature. Not everywhere will see some. And then the start of next week looks largely dry, especially towards the south. Bye-bye.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Good afternoon. I'm Nana Acquia on GB News. I'm in for Martin Daubney. Let's talk about the BBC. They have demanded to see Donald Trump's private messages as it fights against a $10 billion to £7.5 billion defamation lawsuit over a Panorama documentary about the Capitol riot. Now, they want to see Trump's messages from January the 6th, as they say it could help prove whether the documentary wrongly blamed him for the violence. Hold on a minute. Let's just talk about the clip, though, because they manipulated the clip. That's just trying to detract, aren't they? But Donald Trump's lawyers have refused to hand over the exchange, claiming that they are protected. Let's just remind ourselves of that Panorama edit.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Yeah, so they changed the meaning of what he said and stuck something on the end which wasn't right, and then they made it look almost seamless, didn't they? Which you don't do that. That is against their own guidelines and against our rules here, even in this country, in this company. And as a journalist, you just don't do that. Let's speak to the former BBC producer for media monitoring, David Keeley. David. So I just find it a bit interesting that the BBC feel that they want to resurface this clip and then start arguing when what the clip does is shame them every time you see it. You can't go and blame somebody else for you believe starting a riot when what you've done actually by doctoring a clip has kind of tried to make them look guilty of that when that's not what was said.
Exactly, and in my basic BBC training many years ago now, there were sequences played from spectacularly bad interviews, which had been edited badly, and obviously this has been broken here. But in a sense, the BBC now is burrowing down. In that what they're now claiming is that actually what they have said in their latest deposition before the Florida court, which is hearing the case, is that they believe that there's evidence that actually what Donald Trump said was, or what Donald Trump was edited to say, is in fact correct. And what they're trying to get is discovery of a figure called Jack Smith, who was appointed to investigate the Capitol Hill incident, and as a prosecutor, and he came up with a case, which a conclusion, which said that there was evidence to say that Donald Trump had fomented violence on that day. Now, that is not a finding of a court. It is a finding of a man who was a prosecutor, and it is actually taking this case into a wholly different dimension. I don't know how the BBC think they are going to be able to prove, even with the evidence of this man Jack Smith, that Donald Trump, that the clip was in fact correct.
Well, it's a bit desperate, isn't it, that they would be doing that? And I think that they are making an even worse show of themselves by not acknowledging that on this occasion they got it very, very badly wrong. And you can't manipulate a clip to say something that you believe to be true. You have to play the clip. And actually, if they just played the clip, it might have been that it would have sounded that way anyway. But it didn't, because at the end of the clip, the one that they cut, he then said, "and march peacefully." You know what I mean? So you can't do that. And they know that.
Absolutely. And the other side of the coin here is that the BBC, this may very well... Because in America, the disclosure laws are in court are much more radical than here. If one side is looking for discovery, then the other side gets the chance to look at discovery. In the UK, the BBC is very, very seldom scrutinised at court level. And what may well happen here is that the BBC are going to be scrutinised in their editorial processes in this context in a way that they've never been done before in British courts. And the Trump side are now saying that they want Tim Davey, the DG who resigned over the affair, to appear before them, and they are prepared to come to London to take depositions from him. So they are playing what I would consider a very, very high stakes game here. And it could, as I say, it could really backfire on them.
Well, I don't think it's wise for them to do that, bringing back up this clip that was clearly manipulated. Even somebody who doesn't support Donald Trump in an interview had said, "Oh, I hate it when they do that," and he'd pulled out this clip before. It's just not acceptable. They can't do that. And then they're going to have to, unfortunately, may have to learn the hard way. David, you've got about 10 seconds, because I know you were going to say something.
Just that it's going to be a very interesting case. It's due to be heard in February, and every twist and turn is getting more and more fascinating.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, David Keeley. Really good to talk to you. He's a former BBC producer for media monitoring. Yeah, no, the bad thing for the BBC is if they want to keep going that way, then they might find themselves in a lot of trouble. All right, well, Samir Shah, the chairman of the BBC, has apologised for the Panorama edit and has described it as an error of judgment. All right, coming up, 5 officers have been injured after a police boat crashed near Westminster Bridge, with a number of them being recovered from the river. We'll keep you updated on the latest. But before that, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast in Europe.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
The heat we've had this week across some parts of Europe, that is now starting to ease and clear away towards the south. Nonetheless, there's some high humidity around, still some high temperatures. And with that, there's the risk of some heavy thundery showers affecting parts of northern Spain, southern France through tomorrow. Mostly dry for Italy for a day or so, similar across parts of Greece, with today's showers clearing away towards the east, more affecting Turkey. But there is the risk of some further showers for both Italy and Croatia into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There was a Ryanair flight from Thessaloniki in Greece, and a part of the plane hit the window and pulled it out. And so this man, a 61-year-old Serbian man, was sucked out of the window. And his wife, she says that she was desperately holding onto his legs to keep him inside the plane for 5 minutes. Wow. It was horrendous. Apparently the aircraft did eventually land normally and passengers were safe and a replacement airline was sent. He was taken to hospital with friction burns. It was a part of the propeller had come loose from the engine and it had hit the window, and that's what had taken the window out. So it wasn't as though it was thought to be loose in the first place. But can you imagine?
No.
I mean,
I don't want to.
Unbelievable.
I'm
not a good flyer, I have to admit. This terrifies me.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Weight loss jabs could help children as young as 6 who are living with obesity. When did we start saying living with obesity? Can we not say obese children? Is that not politically correct? Well, delighted to be joined now by Sarah LeBrock, Director of All About Obesity. Sarah, I think a lot of people will feel slightly uneasy about children getting on these jabs, simply because we sort of expect, I don't know, diets to be managed by parents.
Yeah, I can totally understand why people would think that. But the point we're not talking about just overweight children here. We're talking about children living with obesity. And interestingly, you say, why do we say living with obesity? It's because they're living with a chronic condition.
GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
What does this kind of day mean to you, kind of coming and doing this every year?
Well, I feel that I'm doing this for my wife because she used to sell poppies properly, really, and I used to help her for 20-odd years. And I feel like I'm doing it for her, really. But it is nice to think that everybody appreciate what we did for being in the forces.
But tell me about your service, because you got sent out to the Far East, didn't you?
Yes. I just got engaged because I didn't think I was going to get called up, but then I did.
In your jacket here, you've got one medal for national service and one for that Hong Kong medal for that.
To be honest, I was 18 years old and I was very excited about going. It was an adventure to me.
The People's Channel.
Hello and welcome to GB News. I'm Nana Akwe. Now, a reminder of that breaking news. 5 officers have been injured after a police boat crashed near Westminster Bridge in central London. In a statement, the Met said a number of officers entered the water but were recovered as they wait for an update on the extent of their injuries. I'm joined now by former Detective Chief Superintendent of the Met Police, Kevin Hurley. Kevin, so looking at what you see there, what do you make has happened?
Well, I can see that the boat involved is one of the larger rigid inflatable boats that the Met Police use. Next to that's a Royal National Lifeboat Institution boat, and next to that's a normal Met Police patrol boat. That rib, from the numbers being carried, it's a 12-seater, so probably the crew was on board. That's a good example of it. Yeah, there it is. Crew was on board, and then a number of passengers, and they were either people getting a familiarisation tour of London, so they could be any kind of person, or they could quite likely, as it may be the case, they were firearms officers who regularly exercised in the back of the ribs to deal with terrorist incidents. So who knows, perhaps they were racing up to simulate an incident around the Houses of Parliament or something. and then either a failure with the steering or operator error, and they hit one of the bridge supports. I can't see in broad daylight how anything else would happen, either a mechanical failure or operator error.
Yeah, if it's operator error, it's a little bit embarrassing, isn't it, really?
Yeah, well, yeah, people are human, you know. It could be anything from the guy. The guy wasn't paying attention, to a bee distracted him, to he coughed, or in a medical episode, who knows why that occurred. But he would have been going at quite some speed because those boats move quite rapidly. I have seen one report that, in fact, they were going up to support an RNNI boat, which is like that orange one in the middle, that was responding to someone in the water. So until it becomes clear what exactly they were doing, we won't know. But it's neither here nor there. In broad daylight, you shouldn't be hitting a bridge pier if you're an experienced boat operator. So it's either mechanical failure or operator error.
Kevin, have you ever been like a water police? What was, I presume this is. What are they? Water police or something?
They used to be called the Thames Division. In fact, they were the earliest police outfit to police the Thames when they used to do it with rowboats in the days of sailing ships in London, the London docks. They're now, I think they're called the Marine Support Unit. It's not the kind of job that I would want to do. I was a career detective and I did public order work, but I have been on them from a point of view of familiarising them myself with the capabilities, so you know what they do. It's quite normal for them to not only carry firearms officers, but public order officers as well, because of course you get fights on boats.
Well, it's a bit embarrassing then. Kevin, I have to leave it there. We're really good to talk to you, Chief and former Chief Superintendent Kevin Hurley. Thank you so much. All right, well, up next at 6, it's Dubes & Co, hosted by Dawn Neeson. That's next. Enjoy.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, it's time for your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, looking ahead to the weekend, and if you're hoping for a bit of rain, well, there will be some, but the further south you are, well, the longer you're going to have to wait. That's because the more changeable weather is coming in from the north. We've already seen a bit of cloud, bit of rain across northern parts today. There is more of that to come through this evening and overnight.